All right. We are live. Josh is just joining.
Ew.
Here he is. We're live, Josh.
Are we?
Yeah, it's 6 o'clock. It's at 9 o'clock on the East Coast.
I'm
Josh is
good.
coming to you from WKAZ in New Hampshire. What the fuck is this?
My mic?
Just the whole setup. The cans, the mic.
Well, the earbuds aren't going to last this long.
Yeah. You don't have the plug-in ones anymore?
No, but these are better for that anyway. Oh, my shit's frozen. All right.
Everyone gets to watch setup.
Well, actually, I wasn't even late. I was just working on it for a while, and I couldn't get it quite right. And I was like, now I have it. And I started, and then I don't.
Hello, everyone. Got a lot of people here already. Kid Keith in the chat room said, if I don't hear Texas is the reason, I'm going to be disappointed. Well, you're going to be disappointed. You'll hear it on Sunday, but not here.
Not live.
Not live. Look at Josh's studio office. It's where the music happens. It's where the magic happens.
It's there's very little magic that happens. It's low on magic. But
do you have the like water? Are you all set to go?
I am all set to go. I'm good.
Do you
I don't like my camera angle. I want to play with it, but I'm not there yet.
There is no recording. YouTube is recording it.
That's frightening.
Yeah. We're in the hands of Google. Google for all your search needs.
Google.
I just want to make sure they're okay. They don't shut us down.
For your mass social commodification.
Mm-hmm. So I guess you have the script?
Oh, yeah.
Now everyone gets to hear us talk in pre-production because we didn't get to chat before.
This is what the kids show up for.
This is the first one I've done of these in years where I don't have the script printed out.
Really? Do you?
Yeah.
Well,
I don't have an office to go print it out at.
I'm kind of surprised that you'd stop doing that.
Well, I don't have an office to print it out at anymore. I have a printer that is very, very slow.
Okay.
So I didn't print it. Also, I have one of those subscription printers where it's super cheap and you get like ink every month, but you can only print out so many pages. And if I would have killed all the month's pages.
I've never heard of that.
Yeah.
I didn't know that was a thing. So
yeah, I found out.
Zipcar of printers?
Kind of.
What does that cost?
I don't remember. I can find out for you later.
I mean, just because a printer's cheap.
The printer's cheap. I think it's like $15 a month. It's something ridiculous. But you get new ink every month. It's not like you don't get ink. They send you ink.
But you can only print so many pages.
Yeah, because there's only so much ink in them.
I think you should just buy a printer.
It's a whole thing. I'll tell you all about it later.
No, this is what people showed up for.
It's how much a month? $3 a month.
Oh, that's much different than 15.
Yeah, it's $3 a month. Anyway, the point is I got a lot on my screen now. Normally I can have the thing here, but that's fine. No one cares.
It's fine. It's fine. Monitors.
I have two monitors. I have the data analytics report on the second monitor.
Well,
so
I will work it out. It'll be okay.
That's fine.
Are we ready to go?
Your angle's better.
All right.
From certain angles, it looks like you have no eyebrows.
Well, I didn't used to. It's because like they actually show up now, but for most of my 20s, they were quite blonde. But the light's right on them.
Right. All right.
Ready?
I'm ready. Yeah, I'm ready.
I feel like I'm flying without a net here.
So we're just doing the open, the pick, the patron pick, and then we're going into the emails. And then at some point, we'll stumble on the patrons' powers and the internal ad read.
Okay.
But
my level okay? You hear me okay?
Yeah, you sound great.
Great. And so in 3, 2, this is iFanboy Pick of the Week 750, brought to you by iFanboy listeners just like you, specifically you. I'm looking at you. Hello. 3, 2. Hello, this is there it is.
He blew it.
Is. Jitters.
Been a long time.
3, 2. Hey, welcome to iFanboy Pick of the Week podcast, episode 750. That's if this was a comic book, it would be at least double sized. They would be There would be other stuff in it that you didn't normally expect. And good news, we're following the model of the medium for which we are known about talking. So
the triple size anniversary issue.
yes, exactly. Although it's not really an anniversary, given the definition of that word anniversary.
It's close though. This is September, and we launched in November.
So this would be 15 years.
Yes.
All right, but the thing is, it's not.
Yeah, it's not.
But
it's all bullshit.
It's all bullshit. That's my point.
Hey, we're doing it live. We're doing it live.
This is live. I am Josh Flanagan. I'm here with Connor Kilpatrick.
Hi.
Who he doesn't know why, but I resent him right now.
I almost forgot to say hi.
I think he does.
I have a traditional anniversary cocktail. This is a Negroni. It's 1 part gin, 1 part Campari, 1 part vermouth.
Every time someone says the word Negroni, I think that they probably shouldn't.
It's Italian.
The word.
It's a guy's name from Italy.
I understand that, but it doesn't feel that way.
I understand.
Okay.
But that's what I've got going. Josh has water.
I don't know. This is a cider, and it's in my Yeti tumbler.
Oh, I've got water in a Yeti tumbler next to me.
Yeah. Well, I might at some point we're gonna take a bathroom break, and then I will switch it out. I also have 3/4 of a Diet Dr. Pepper.
And the police are here. I should also point out before we get moving on this that this is the first one of these maybe ever that we've only done with 2 people.
I recognize that. I can't.
Ryan was supposed to join us, but he had a thing he couldn't get out of, and again the cops are coming for me. So it'll be a Josh solo show in a minute.
I can do it. You know it.
Usually with 3 people, some of the load gets taken off. Like you can sort of, relax for a minute, but no, we got to be fully engaged for 3 hours.
Share the load.
All right, let's do this.
We didn't promise 3 hours.
No.
Most of the time, it's a whole other thing.
Let's get this going.
All right, so we're iFanboy. We like comic books. We talk about them every week. We read our stack of comics. We pick out the one that we liked best for whatever reason is that we choose. We liked it best. We call that the pick of the week. We talk about other books from the week. We talk about the patron pick. We do some mail if possible. But this week, things are all different. This week, we are going to talk about 2 comic books. We're going to talk about Connor's pick of the week, which is some sort of mental illness thing going on. And then we are going to talk about the patron pick. Same. And then we are going to do as many emails as we can stand for the remainder until I'm like, I have to go to bed, or until Connor passes out. One of those things. Is it hot there?
It's a little not hot. I was running around a lot before the show.
Understood.
I took a shower about an hour ago. I got a light on me.
Yep.
There's a lot of things going on.
Oh, you've lit. I just look like this.
Yeah,
I am self-illuminating. That's my That's my patron power.
You just blew a patron power. You could have given that to the
I know. It's fine. You know what? I'm chock full of them. Not true. This is the 750 episode. This is all listener, like we said. It'll be a good time. Theoretically, before we get to that, there will be spoilers. Spoilers from Madrid. There'll be many spoilers. This is a review show. We'll be talking about what happens in those books, and chances are, at some point in these hours coming, we will talk about something that you haven't read, and we'll spoil that too.
Yeah, sorry. I think we should point out just before we go that if you have stumbled on this show, it's not a normal show. It ain't normal.
They're not normal. They're not like you and me.
So come back or check behind this show to find a normal. This is a special anniversary episode.
That's true. But
so I'll do the pick.
Yeah, you have it.
I don't know what's going on. We never have sirens around here. Pick of the week is Dark Knights: Death Metal - Speed Metal #1 from Joshua Williamson, Eddie Barrows, Eber Ferreira, Adriano Lucas, Steve Wands. And I had a really hard time making a pick this week.
Clearly.
I can't remember a harder week.
So, I mean, walk me through this. Well,
I think there's probably 10% of it was like, oh, it's for a big live show, like jitters. 10% was not having the Wednesday deadline anymore, meaning no more like you have to pick. Like I was able to like live in my head for a long time.
Oh yeah.
And then I liked things, but I didn't really love anything.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like things were fine, and I had to think of, okay, which one of these did I like enough to really praise? I even tried new things. I tried the Skull Digger and Skeleton Boy book.
What's that called? The Jeff Lemire universe.
It's from Black Hammer. It's Jeff Lemire and Tonchik.
Tanji Zanzik.
Terrific artist.
Oh,
And that was good. It was
Yeah.
good. The fourth issue wasn't the best. So I ended up rereading Dark Knights Death Metal hyphen Speed Metal #1. And look, did you read this, by the way?
I did.
Okay. So
read is a generous interpretation of what I did with it, but I went through it. I looked at all the pictures. I took in many of the words. I had a lot of questions.
listen, the overall metal story is bullshit. I don't care.
Well, I mean, here's why. You talk about the book. I really want to do that.
Yeah.
Why did you read this? Why was this even?
It wasn't on my pull list originally.
So you finished everything. You're like, I guess I'll try this.
Honestly, I'll give a nod to the patrons. They were talking about it, saying how great it was, and so I was like, okay, well, I need something and that was like I added Skull Digger, I added this one, and again, Batman Who Laughs, don't care. The whole metal storyline, I don't care, but Williamson wrapped up his Flash run this week too. This was the last issue, so this is kind of like the co-Flash wrap up,
right?
And what he does here is, within the confines of this Dark Knight's death metal story, he tells the story of the Flash family finally coming back together, and that means the redemption of Wally West a little bit. Wally's been off in the ether, literally. He came back in Rebirth. John's clearly had a whole plan for that. It didn't go anywhere because John's got ousted. And then they brought him back for Heroes in Crisis, and they had turned him into a murderer. And so here we get the sort of the slate wiped clean, and not in a comics way, in a character way. He whatever's happening, and I don't know what's happening. For me, it's not as important as the character interactions between Wally and Barry and Jay, and then a little bit Wallace and a little bit of Bart. They're trying to survive whatever this thing is happening. And it's almost like being dropped in the middle of a story, not really caring, but it is about the characters, and it's about Wally and Barry finally coming to terms with whatever problems they've been having. And it's about Jay smacking them in the head for being stupid in that great one panel where he smacks them both in the head, that super speed. It was all about the characters. And at the end, whatever happens, whatever Speed Force gobbledygook happens, and the whole Flash family comes together, including Linda, including Wally's kids, Jesse, Max, Bart, everybody, and even Iris, who kisses him, and I didn't realize that was Iris, and I was like, whoa, who's kissing his aunt? I just loved the character interactions. I loved, when they put the metal suits on, it was dumb. Like, not when they put them on, when they had them put on them by the whatever magic. But when Wally breaks out, and then he ends up in his classic Wally, old Pre-52 costume from when he was Flash, was awesome. This was just like character stuff.
It's funny because there was a panel where he was in that costume, and then he was talking to Barry, who's still in the glowy zappy bits.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh God, that's garish. Get it off of him. Because on its own, it looks enough like the Flash costume that I don't think about it. But there was that one shot, and I was like, oh, let's just make it stop zapping around like that. Yeah.
And I even kind of liked that they had the cowl rip a little, so his hair flopped out, so he looked a little bit like Kid Flash again. I just really dug the character interactions, and I love Eddie Barrows. I've always loved Eddie Barrows. He's not a superstar. I'd call him not a journeyman. That's too middle. But he's sort of in between, and he never attained star status. He's sort of
he's a little bit unique. It's almost like he wasn't quite house style enough, but he wasn't quite wacky enough, and I think that people didn't really know what to do with him. Does that make sense? He first showed up, I want to say the first time I knew him was when Greg Rucka was writing Action Comics.
Okay.
And I thought, oh, this is really kind of big and exciting, but it wasn't big and exciting in the, I was about to say Ethan Van Sciver way, because that was the thing, but I was trying to think of
that was the thing.
Yeah, or Ivan Reis, that kind of
yeah. He was almost Ivan Reis, but not quite Ivan Reis.
Yeah, but just weird enough that for me it makes it more interesting. But also, I think for him, probably cost him a little bit of work. Or he's an asshole and no one likes to work with him. I don't know.
No, he worked for a long time on a lot of books. He did Nightwing for a good run. Like he's been around,
but he wasn't.
But he never hit like star status. He hit like right below that.
He never stays on anything that long.
I mean, I have to look.
You know what I mean? Like I feel like I'm like, oh, there he is, and he'll be around for a couple of issues, and then that'll be it, and then he'll go somewhere else.
I'm having a Goodfellas moment.
Are you?
I don't know why the helicopters are hovering. Something's going down in my neighborhood.
None of us hear any helicopters, dude.
That's fine. You know, take the wrapping off, take whatever nonsense this was. Mm-hmm. Inside this dumbass story was this great group of characters finally being friends again. And they contrived that Barry, Wally that's talked about in this issue, which they contrived them to be like at butting heads, which never made any sense. So here they kind of fix that, and at the end they run off to adventure together with Wally taking the lead. There's literally a helicopter hovering over my apartment building.
It's okay. Where does this fit? Like, is this canon? Is this the story?
I guess. Well, so
I don't know, because I know that last week that the Flash was ending, and it was the big Reverse Flash thing. Where he's whispering in everybody's ears.
I mean, I don't know how that fits into this. I mean, this fits in between Death Metal 3 and 4, according to be continued in Death Metal 4 at the end. But here it's funny because Doomsday Clock sort of became like this elseworldy story, but it's referenced here. Mm-hmm. Well, so it's like, who knows?
I gotta say,
it's Josh Williamson, so I'm sure it fits in somehow.
Yeah. Well, yeah. That guy's a team player. He's gonna do the thing with the button. Okay. Right. I gotta say, I read it, and besides the fact that it really didn't fit in with anything,
right?
And it felt a little like also Ranny in this. Like it was like a simulacrum of a Flash story that felt meaningful. Whereas when we read the 0 Hour, whatever it was, like those Tom Taylor stories, like it's like, oh, this feels like these characters. I watched this and I was like, I read this and I feel like I just watched these scenes recently. That's what
they're similar.
Yeah. And not as good. And it's just like there was fighting kind of for no reason. I know they were, but also they were doing that issues. So I was like, has nothing changed? But again, I don't know where it fits in. So I don't know my context for this.
Yeah, I don't know. And it could not. But I assume in Josh Williamson's head, he could tell you like where this fits in relation to his run.
I'm absolutely sure he could. But I didn't have that. And so you've got that. You've got the Batman who laughs. At least they took the thing off his face, I guess.
Did they?
Well,
my eyes would glaze over whenever anything.
I know, but they say his name and he's in there, and so it was really hard for me to like. I know I can tell what you saw, and I can see it there. I just don't think it carried over. I don't think that went that way. I would want this to be a real comic. They stuck it in the middle of this other one to
Yeah, it's unfortunate because none of this stuff all could have happened in Flash.
Right. Yes. And it should. Like that should be the deal.
We had that little call out to it in the last issue, which was particularly for Flash, in which Wally shot the lightning down and called to them through the lightning. And then they said, Where's Wally? Go see Death Metal, whatever. Fuck.
Well, if that's the case, then this is the real thing.
Yeah.
And it was there was a lot of talking about science and stuff, and then there was like they just were all in. I didn't know what was happening. Like I know there was the relationship stuff, but the rest of it going on, I don't know. They were running, but if they ran too fast, it would destroy the Speed Force. And then there was also the was it the Crisis Force or the Anti-Crisis Force?
Anti-Crisis Matter in him. I don't know. That's from whatever. To me, I just sort of took all that in like comics nonsense that I just sort of rolled with. And look, I don't want to qualify this pick because I did really enjoy the scenes of them together, but in another week, this may not have been pick of the week.
How shitty were the rest of the comics you read?
No, I liked this issue. Okay. I like the art. I like the character stuff. I think it's, and at the end of the day, the character stuff is what we come to these books for. Mm-hmm. And even if it's in the midst of like gobbledygook, that's a segue to the next issue we're going to talk about. And as long as the character stuff's strong, then that can float through all the nonsense. And I really like the character stuff. As a guy who's been reading Flash since every month since he was 12, it resonated with me.
All right.
Um,
I'm glad that you got some enjoyment out of it.
I'm hoping that eventually the people watching this in the live stream will see the SWAT team busting through my window.
That would be the best thing, like the end
So
of
that
Christmas
was the
vacation.
pick of the week. Now let's do the Patron pick over at patreon.com/iFanboy. The patrons can vote to add a book to the rundown. Any patrons can do so. And this week, the votes are really spread out amongst a lot of books. Also, we don't have a timer. I have no idea how long the conversation was.
Well, it's 20 past the hour.
But the winner of the Patron... Oh, we do have timers right there. The winner of the Patron pick was X of Swords, Creation #1, or as we find out in the comic, 10 of Swords, Creation #1, written by Jonathan Hickman and Teeny Howard, art by Pepe Larraz, colors by Marte Gracia, and letters by Clayton Cowles. And this is the 66-page part 1 of 22 in the X of Swords story. Did you notice that in the cover, Josh?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did.
22.
Which is weird because this felt like a 30-part story. And so 22 more of those is an infinite number of parts, which is Jonathan Hickman's famous circle, which never fucking ends.
I laughed reading this because all I did was think about you reading it. And I could see your face. I could hear the grunting and the moaning.
I kept checking the page count. I was like, how far am I? Oh my God, I'm only on page 14. And then you'd get to his like chapter separation things. And I'd be like, maybe this is it. No, it's still going.
That's the downside of digitals. You never really know how far you are.
I mean, my review of this is no, please stop. No, go away. Please stop. Why? No. All right. I am done equivocating.
Yeah.
With the Jonathan Hickman's very talented, and I don't get this at all. Like, I get that you know people really like these characters and all of the apocalypse stuff, which I have never read and I don't understand, and I've never at any point when I've come across it thought, man, I need more of this. I had no idea what was happening in any way at any point, who anybody was, what the stakes were, why I should care, and why the book wouldn't fucking end. It just kept going. It was just great. It was just soft sci-fi, pseudoscience, like posturing that Stan Lee would have done. Stan Lee would have said, that's a bit overwrought. It was too fucking much bullshit that didn't mean anything, and it went on and on and on. And thank God Pepe Larraz can draw something, because otherwise it would have clawed my eyes out.
He's a terrific artist.
He's a great artist.
Terrific artist. I agree with you that if you came into this like not having read any of the X books, I don't know how they expect people to come in off the street and read this as a big event book. Like, I gotta imagine they're only targeting people who are already reading X-Men books, because I'm reading X-Men, I'm reading Marauders, I'm reading X-Force, and I barely hung on here. And what this represented to me was all of the stuff I don't like about Hickman's X-Men run. Like, if you remember way back to Powers of X or Powers of 10 and House of X, I think that was the calls.
Yeah.
Half those books were this nonsense, like apocalypses, kids, other planets, like these overwrought gods. And remember we talked about those books, like I don't care about any of this stuff. Get back to and so that's how I felt reading this. Was like the first 10 pages that was set all on that planet, the kingdom of Dreador, an otherworld. I was like, someone shoot me. There was stuff in the middle that I did really like and enjoy, but
I liked, what scene I liked? I liked the meeting. That was the best thing in this, was the meeting. And there's basically one bit where is it Cypher? Is that the character who talks to Krakoa?
I think so. There's a lot of X
Douglas, I don't know, whatever. He just sits there to talk for the island in case they need to say some shit back and forth. And by the way, there should be an app for that, because first of all, there's some really good scientists there. And, that guy just has to sit there in case the tree has to say something. I know it's not a tree, it's a planet, but whatever.
It's the island.
But there was one bit where they're talking, and at one point, the island's like, you can't do that. And he sets down some rules. He's like, your guest's here. I like all this is working out, but you can't, say whatever. And then Professor X in his big stupid vacuum helmet stands up and he says, I'm really sorry that we referred to you as a thing and not a, which by the way, this is like that is like the next step of, I don't want to call it political correctness, but the idea that like there's all sorts of subsections of society that people don't quite know how to handle or how to talk about.
Living islands are complicated.
Well, I'm just saying, like, it doesn't necessarily make you transphobic if you don't quite know how to refer to somebody because it's all very new, and I can understand that. Now, add in the fact that it's a sentient island. Like, right. Are you a him, or is it a they, or what do we do? But there was that one part where like I like being reminded. I think it's interesting that Krakoa is a sentient being and it can talk to them, and like that sort of brings it back around to something really interesting. And that little bit was fun, and that was kind of the only thing I grabbed on because I knew what it was. Other than that, it was really difficult because I thought, who's the lady, the woman who's at the end who's very powerful? Saturnine.
She's in a book I'm not reading.
Saturnine, who looks just like fucking Emma Frost.
Yeah.
So what am I supposed to do with that? Like, it was.
I like the action sequence in the middle, like when they all go to fight to save the dude that got left behind. Like that was all fun. It was drawn really well. There was a nice swerve in the middle. One of the characters that had been supposedly good throughout the other books finds out is evil. Like that part was all good. But that was maybe 7 or 8 pages out of 66.
Yeah.
So
but, I mean, the thing is, when I read those first like X-Men and House of X, the really interesting thing to me was the societal consequences of them starting this nation and how that fits in with the world politics and how it fits in with their friends and their old friends and their relationships and how that works. And this is what you're saying, is that the other side of it was like, and then Space Boy Zippity Goo goes over here to the other world with and they just went full on to that.
Well, that was the thing I've been worried about, because again, reading those books, for the most part, it's been fun with the story of X-Men and Fuck Island and all their stuff, their adventures. But then every once in a while, Apocalypse would go through a gate and there'd be a thing and there'd be a lot of long character names. And, that was the part I'd always sort of gloss over in the actual books themselves or the other books I'm reading. And so now that it's the focus of this 22-part event running through all the books.
I think what's interesting is that people like this, and I'm not even coming down on it for it, but I just don't understand.
Well, I think you'd like it if you've been reading all the books and you like
but that. Not, just as a concept, as a type of story, it feels like I don't understand. I don't get it. It's like terrible music to me, and I'm like, why does somebody like this? And normally I can say, it's not for me, but I get it. But I don't get it. I just don't understand, which is not the same thing as me saying it's terrible. I think it's terrible, but clearly other people like it. And I obviously, like, most of the time I can read Hickman's stuff and I can be like, okay, I get what the thing is. It doesn't work for me. But I mean, if you can follow all that stuff, you're dug in deep. I mean,
it was pretty plotting in the beginning, especially. Talk about not starting off your event with a bang. Like, start off, open up with a set piece, man. Like, bring us in. Otherwise, it was just a lot of people in masks talking about really highfalutin things on alien planets I don't know anything about.
But I mean, isn't this what like Claremont fans liked? Isn't that what that is?
I don't know. That's not what I liked when I read Claremont. I mean, I never.
That's what I always thought of it as. So, this is what X-Men has always felt like for me. But this is like
Starjammer stuff was pirates in space. This is like something different. So, ratings on X of Swords : creation number 1 or 10 of Swords : creation number 1.
1.5.
1.5 out of 5.
Could not read this, and I mean that just
I'm surprised you went 1.5. To be honest with you,
Pepe Larraz.
All right, there you go.
Guy did a great job.
Terrific.
But I don't. I mean, I guess if the idea is to throw me in the middle of a story, you don't want me to start with this, then fine. But
I'm gonna give it 2.5.
Mhm.
2.5. I'm not. You're not sticking with it. We all know that. Everyone knows that. The whole building knows.
Everyone knows.
I'm not.
My wife's downstairs. She's like, "Well, you didn't like whatever that is."
Kids are like, so you didn't like X of Swords?
You were asleep. How did you know that?
Kids sound now.
You know what I will say when they got to the tarot cards, I was like, "Oh fuck me."
But you know why I did like about it? It was 1 page each. I was like, "Goo, get past this."
True.
All right.
But then there was a text page explaining more about it that didn't help.
Yeah, it literally just explained what we had just read, so I skipped that. It was like, these are the same things we just happened. I was hoping to go through the entire deck. I was like, do the whole deck, do it all. I'm not sticking with it as a thing where I'm reading all 22 pages, 22 chapters, and almost
They must be spread out in other books.
Well, it's going through all the X books. There's like 8 X books.
It's interesting because if they're doing 22, then maybe are they gonna have a specific order? Like each book will be like, this is 5 of 22.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm sure
there's a checklist in the back.
Well, there's always a checklist, but it's never very clear like which part fits where. So if that's the thing that they're gonna do, I can applaud that at least.
I mean, this is an X-Men event.
Mm-hmm.
It just seems odd to me that they wouldn't want to try to pull in other people who maybe were casual fans. So chapter 2, it's got in the back. It says what chapters they are. Mm-hmm. It says here, the chapters here, the issues are here.
Say that man can make a chart.
He's great. He's a great designer. So X Factor Wolverine. I'm reading 3 of the 4 first chapter. I might just skip those issues. I might just skip them. I can't. I haven't decided yet.
I think Hickman knows what's up. I think he's like, it's
all
just
you
gobbledygook, man.
you don't like his style, and I totally understand. I understand why you don't like it. I have been on both sides of the coin. I really, really like some of his stuff. I thought his Fantastic Four was great. I thought his Secret Warriors was great. I didn't like his Avengers, and that was I dropped Avengers for the first time in like 20 years.
Oddly, a lot of those characters ended up being in like the movies and stuff,
right?
Which is interesting.
Anyway, let's move on. What was your favorite book of the week before we move on to emails?
I don't think that I've finished enough. I read like half of them.
Well, you were surprised I didn't find something that blew my socks off. Was something that blew your socks off that you read?
I don't think I would say that something blew my socks off, but I enjoyed stuff. I enjoyed like Dr. Doom. I enjoyed Deceased is always interesting. I kind of liked Shazam. Which I hadn't expected to. It's a little like the movie, but it's basically Shazam goes and he's in Japan or whatever, and he punches the head off a monster, and then he has to go to school the next day, and the teacher just gives him a ton of shit about something, and he's like, why do we have to learn all this? And then that night he goes into a burning building, and it's his teacher who's lost everything, and he's as Shazam, and so he goes to take care of her, and he goes out to dinner, and the teacher tells him everything that's gone wrong with her life and all this stuff, and he's like, oh man, I don't know what to do. And they did do a really good job of writing him not like an adult, but as a kid who's trying to act like
seeing your teacher as a human. It's always
and then he goes back in the next day, and he's like, as Billy again, he has to pretend that he didn't know her. It was sweet. It was actually really I was kind of surprised because I didn't know what to make of it.
Quick aside for you, I'm just curious before you get the emails. You grew up in a much smaller town than I did.
Yes. Did
you see your teachers out in the wild?
I don't remember that. If I did, it would be like occasionally. Like every once in a while, I would. Hey, there's Mrs. So and So. But in general, even though I grew up in a small, I hate running into people.
Well, just in general,
like like anyone I know out in the world, I don't like. Because I just want to be. That's one of the things I love living in the city for that. Like in the city, you're always anonymous, so there's no. If you have small talk, it's quick and it moves on. You're not going to get stuck. And except for that small amount of time when we were doing the video show and we're relatively well known, and it could happen at any time, and it would sometimes.
Let's do the emails. We told you to write in at contact@ifanboy.com, and you did, and we thank you. And again, as always, we removed the platitudes in the emails, but we read them all, and they're heartfelt, and they move us. So thank you for all that. I appreciate also everyone who took the time to write how much time they've been thinking about their email. That's always appreciated as well.
It's merely expected at this point.
So we're going to kick off the show, as we almost always do, because he's a quick emailer, with Nick P. from Newport Beach, California, who's currently living in Luxembourg, making that banking money, I assume. Nick P. says, by the way, Nick, you know any eccentric billionaires in Luxembourg? Let's get to the email.
There's like 8 people in Luxembourg, and 6 of them are millionaires.
I've been there.
Eccentricity, I don't know, but
I went there when I was a kid. I didn't realize where I was. All right.
Amazing waffles.
Nick P. says, I love to hear the stories about Connor and Ron going through and selling their comic collections. We know Josh hasn't done quite the same thing, as he has ample space in his murder basement. My question now is about trades, hardcovers, and other collected editions. I myself never collected a large amount of single issues when I was younger, and only ended up with a couple of short boxes worth. I started seriously reading and collecting mostly with trades and other collections. At this point, I have over 450 various collected editions, such as trades, hardcovers, absolutes, omnibuses, etc. I assume you all have also acquired a large collection. I know you are all digital on issues, but have you reached a point where you no longer buy physical collected editions either? Are you planning on thinning your collected editions, or have you done so already? If you have, or you will, how will you decide what goes and what stays?
So this is interesting, because you, as I know you, are pretty regular trade collection buyer for a long time, and I know that you kept it up a lot longer than me, and I don't know where you're at now.
Yes. Where I'm at now is that I tend to buy like archive editions. So what I mean by that is older stories that I want to have on my shelf. I'm less about buying series in trade and getting the next volume that comes out. I sort of fall off them.
Yeah.
The ones we've been following ended. Invincible ended. Walking Dead ended. And I think the switch to digital helped me stay on issues more, oddly enough.
Sure.
Because part of the reasons why I stopped with, I read in trade because I didn't like having the comics around, the single comics. So I'm more, I just got a giant shipment the other day. I bought I have all the Batman Golden Age omnibuses, all 8 volumes. I've got a Nightwing. Not yet. I look through them. I do look through them.
Preparing for
someday
retirement, which is.
But I do look through them. They're fun to leaf through. Nightwing Year One hardcover, the Robin Bronze Age omnibus. You know, when we read something and really love it, I buy it. Like I have Superman Smashes the Klan over there. I have Batman Universe. I have Superman Up in the Sky. Like Mr. Miracle. Like things that we read recently that I think are really, really great. I buy those in collection, and I buy like the old school omnibus. I've got like literally a 6.5 foot stack of DC omnibuses that they've been putting out the Silver Age, Bronze Age, and Golden Age collections, and I have tons of those.
So you're clearly going for like the archivist library model.
Well, I like that I can theoretically have all the Batman Golden Age books. I have almost all. They're like 3 years short of finishing the Golden Age run. They're probably one or two more volumes.
When does that end?
53, 57. It's one of those.
So is that like the same time that like the Flash?
Yeah, whenever Barry shows up at the start of the Silver Age. And
do the comics noticeably change? So like if you're reading Batman,
it's not like there's a flip.
It's not like a
switch.
line.
It's not like a flip.
They didn't reboot.
Yeah.
So
like, when's the last trade you bought?
That Jack Kirby Tom Scioli book, which is unusual for me. I actually don't buy a lot of books. I mean, the fact is, what you just said was sort of it. For a long time, especially when we were doing the shows and all the stuff, and we're like, I was buying all the comics that I wanted, and the idea has always been like, I don't just collect runs because I know I probably won't run them, but I would go after, read them. I would go after things that I really loved, but that kind of falls off because at a certain point, I kind of stopped falling in love with stuff in the same way that I did earlier because it's hard to find something sort of new like that. The other thing that happened is, I have kids. I am super busy and shit just piles up, and I have so many books. I have so many books that are unread, and I read comics. I read more comics than anything else. I do that every Wednesday. I read for hours and hours and hours. And so the idea of piling up more when I've got all these other sort of like novels and other kinds of books, just other kinds of reading, not necessarily better or not, but I really enjoy that kind of reading. So I just,
I still reading.
but I
ton
also
of
know,
novels.
where we've been doing this show for 15 years, like I don't read that stuff. It's just here. It looks awesome on the wall, but I don't read it. It's like when you've had a book for 10, 12 years and you haven't read it, I'm going to stop adding. And that's kind of where I got to, which is,
So, did you get rid of?
No. Although there have been times, and I think I might do this. I might cull, something that seemed like it was going to be really important to me 10 years ago. I might go, I'm not interested in this at all anymore.
I have been calling stuff. I've been calling. I give away at the end of the year to like charity.
I give it to the library.
But like even yesterday, I was on my couch because I saw behind me. People can't see anymore because it's dark. But I have a display shelf, and I have a shelf for Wonder Woman. I have a shelf for Batman, a shelf for Superman, and I was looking at a Superman shelf, and I was like, I kept that Grant Morrison New 52 Superman hardcover.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need that.
Yeah, and there's a lot of stuff that at the time, that's really good. But okay, so let's look at Rucka and J.H. William III Batwoman.
Right.
That was amazing for the time. Am I ever actually going to pick that up and read it again? Am I going to read American Vampire again? No, I'm not. And the fact is, like, I can take that stuff to the library and maybe a kid will dig it or whatever. I'm going to keep Born Again. I'm going to keep, I've got, I'm actually looking.
Josh is moving his camera. I'm going to narrate this for the people.
The history of hip hop books. Those I keep. Those I want. I've got The Private Eye is up there. I've got.
You sound like Phil Hartman and his canes on News Radio. This one I keep. This one displeases me.
I watched before we started. I just watched a News Radio, and it was the one where Santa thinks he's going to kill Phil Hartman. It's just the best.
By the way, be prepared to weep.
I know.
You've never wept when Phil Hartman dies on that show.
I know.
I'll just say one last thing. Because I know you don't necessarily buy things, I will send you things.
Yes, and you just did, and it's one of the best books I've read in a long time. But I also have tons of you are responsible for more unread material in this house than anybody is.
I'm only sending you like what I think is.
I know.
Terrific.
No. You understand my taste better than anybody in the world, and so I know if you send me something, that it's going to be something that I'll love, and that is.
We're talking around it. Talk about it in a Booksplode, but I finished reading that and I was like, "Holy shit!" The next morning, I sent it to you and our buddy Hank because he loves that author artist and he also loves basketball. Oops.
Well, but even just prose books. I have a lot of prose books that you've sent me, and I'm still reading The Patriarch. I'm still reading it though. Like it is. No, it's active. The other day, Patriarch is a biography. Connor talked about it years ago on the All Media show, and it's a biography of Joseph Kennedy. And then just the other day, somebody was like, "Well, we all know that he was a bootlegger." I was like, "We do not know that."
Actually, you're wrong.
Yeah.
Actually, this is a great segue into Scott H. from Portland, Oregon, who says, "What are some of the best media recommendations, comics, TVs, movies, etc., you've ever gotten from each other?" So that's a great segue, Josh.
It is. I mean, Connor watched a lot. When I met Connor, it was in my period of I never watched TV. I didn't really watch very much though. Like Connor was the reason why I started watching Oz, which was like the first great golden age TV. Not golden age, but whatever the new golden age of TV. And like that show really kicked everything off in terms of sort of the new style of television. And Connor was like, "You have to watch this." And it was the most fucked up thing I've ever seen. Still true.
I recommended to you Mad Men, ER.
Yeah, Mad Men's a good one. ER sort of like I knew about it. I knew you guys liked it.
You got me. I mean, you beat me and got me on The Wire, on the Shield.
Mm-hmm. Battlestar Galactica.
Was that you and Ron, or I don't remember.
Who knows? But
definitely The Wire and the Shield. So like those right there.
You were ahead of The West Wing. I don't think you got me to watch it, but a lot of times I will.
No, I remember you were at my desk at that stupid desk by the door, and you was like, "I need a new show. What should I watch?" And I was like, "You have to watch The West Wing."
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
you would love it.
That makes sense. But a lot of times it will be like Connor will watch something, and I will finally get to it. He doesn't say anything, and I'll just be like, "Hey, did you watch Trust?" And he's like, "Yeah, it was great." I was like, "Oh," and so I will start talking about it as if he's still watching it, even though he watched it 2 years ago. The Expanse, somebody just mentioned in the chat. You guys were on top of that, and I knew that you'd mentioned it or whatever, but like a year ago or less, probably, I was like, I need something else to read. I just need it because I had an audiobook creditor, and you were like, do The Expanse. I was like, okay, and it was like, poof, all in.
But you wanted like a long series that would really take up time.
I love long form stories. I mean, that's my favorite thing, and that was perfect for that, where you're following characters over a long arc and they get to develop, not like comic books, but like in TV shows and novels where they actually.
You also got me on Sopranos, so like even if I just took those 3 shows, The Wire, The Shield, and The Sopranos, and you only recommend shows that start with that's your thing.
I only watch shows that start with Homicide's another one. Connor
those 3 got so 3 of the best shows of the last 20 years. So books
are. I feel like we do read a lot of the same books. I don't know who started reading. I don't know who started reading Neil Stephenson first. I feel like it was me because
I read Snow Crash soon after college.
Yeah, me too.
I think we started sort of reading it by osmosis at the same time.
I think so. I think that was the thing that was happening.
But it was you who'd be like, no, read Diamond Age next. Like, like even though we both are big fans, you would be like, no, read this one next because I really loved it. And I was like, oh, I was going to read that one. Okay, I'll read the Diamond Age. Like that. That was like a very similar. But we both. In terms of book readings, we like the same things. We like history books. We like biographies. Yeah. We like Neil Stephenson, which I was gonna. He's a genre. He's not really a genre. So like I know if I really love the World War II book, I can send it to Josh. And I know he'll like it, or he'll at least find it interesting. Like I'm still thinking about Blitzed.
Oh my god!
Every time I watch something about the war and they don't mention drugs, I'm like, you guys are missing out on like a huge aspect of
the whole point. What's going on with Hitler? I know exactly what's going on with Hitler.
Why did the Blitzkrieg work? They were all on crystal meth. They ran across Europe without sleeping.
Pervitin.
Like that's like literally I stumbled on Ken Burns' The War last night. And I was watching it. They're talking about Hitler's crazy plan to run through the Ardennes forest. And I was like, yeah, because he was on meth and cocaine and heroin. But like no one knows about that book because it was this German guy who found all the records. Anyway, we could talk about Blitz for the next hour and a half. Let's not do that. Let's move on to the next question. You read one.
The same guy invented heroin and aspirin
in the same week,
11 days apart.
Cheers, guy. German guy.
No shit. So Rashad B. Didn't he used to play for the Blazers? No, that was not B. How do you think Rashard Wallace? That's who I was thinking of. It's not even the same first name. How do you think or want the MCU to introduce mutants? How much in continuity are Netflix shows? A lot of people seemingly miss the introduction of mutants and a kind of reference to Professor X and the X Mansion in Jessica Jones season 2. Jessica and her mom got her powers through genetic experiments, and it was revealed that they were doing these experiments on people for decades. That is the explosion of the mutant gene in the Ultimate Universe. So when Jessica and her mom were on the run, the cops figured out that they were heading towards Westchester County, New York, and that they wonder who she could know or seek refuge from in that area. I feel like I'm the only one who noticed that and put it all together, but I could be wrong. Wakanda forever. Absolutely. You might be the only one who watched Jessica Jones season 2.
Did I watch it? I think I did. I did watch it. That was with Hellcat. Yeah, I did watch it.
Yeah.
I don't remember much about it. I think you probably been the only one who put it together. And it seems like that's more of like a nice nod because at the time there was no sign that the X-Men were going to come back to Marvel.
Yeah.
So how in continuity are they? They are as in continuity as the people making the movies want them to be, which is probably not
how much. Yeah. I mean, I mean, it's my understanding. I'm not an insider. I know some who have, but it turns out that the insiders I know are sort of more mum than I would like them to be. But it's it's my idea that the MCU TV and the MCU movies were not really all that interconnected. And
no, I had a friend who no longer works there, but used to work there, and used to tell me stuff. The TV and the movies hate each other, and that's why there was no crossover, and that's why Shield was basically written out of the movies once the TV show happened. That's why Daredevil was never ever going to be in the Avengers. Like, so
and that's frankly like that all has to be cutesy nudge nudge wink wink stuff because they don't have the rights to do the mutants, so they could only, I think it was just and so that's a cutesy thing which they could take, but they won't because
in the Hollywood hierarchy, movies continue to sit on top no matter what, even though financial reasons they maybe shouldn't be, but they will until something drastically changes. They'll sit on top, which means the movie people can make any decision they want, which means they will ignore that to their leisure, and they'll do whatever they want to add X-Men to the universe. Now, I don't know how they're going to do it. I haven't thought about it. I have no preference. What it is lucky for them is that they ran their course with the Avengers. They weren't going to recast those characters. They're not going to live on Shang-Chi and Doctor Strange forever. So how do you do it? You start over with the X-Men and the Fantastic Four, and you can introduce a whole slate of new characters and tell those stories.
Can you imagine how great a Fantastic Four movie could be?
I'm hoping it is, because it's a great concept that just has not been.
So good.
Davin P. In episode 746, you briefly touched on the subject of job roles in the comics industry, but I'm wondering if you could explain in a bit more detail, what specifically does the editor-in-chief do? What about an assistant or associate editor? How about the publisher? Pretty much every title that I see on a title page is meaningless besides the creatives making the book. I've been thinking about this every day since August 30th. Every day.
I think there are some basics about it, but I also think that it's like any job any organization that you go to, is that, outside of some sort of very specified things, those roles can be pretty flexible depending on what it is and what the strengths of the people are. So I know, let's start with editors, because editors are sort of the main conduit between the creative and publishing. Editors can be all over the map. I mean, largely their job is to put together the projects, make sure that there's a writer and an artist and all the other people to make the comic book, and shepherd the story in a way that agrees with the company's, what the company's sort of goals and direction is. And that's the basic of it. Now, after that, it can change around a lot depending on the organization, the creators involved, the editor themselves, how sort of creatively involved they get. Some people don't have anything to do with it creatively, and they let they just take notes on it technically and go through it and set things. There's other people, I've heard a lot of dudes complain about editors who really want to be writers and weren't, and so they try to sort of shove themselves into every part of the story and nudge
how
in
many
this
editors
direction.
do we know that became writers?
I mean, many of them. I mean, many of the best, like Mark Waid is the first guy who came to mind. Mark Waid, I don't know if people know this, but like Mark Waid is listed as an editor on The Watchmen. Like, which kind of blows my mind. There's a lot of guys who come from that way. Peter Tomasi.
You have to have the skills of a writer to be an editor. You have to. That's
true.
It's 100% true in the comics industry. As someone who published comics and has talked to a lot of them, you have to be able to. First of all, a lot of stories are set by the editors and they're handed to the writers. Mm-hmm. They're outlined by the editors.
That's in one type of comics, whereas over in like a smaller,
Well, we're not talking about smaller. I mean, he's not talking about.
Talking about it. That's fine. Yeah, I mean, and then you've got an associate editor who probably takes on many or only some of those duties, or to help out the editor who's there. It might be really sort of clerical, grunt work stuff, but it might be, call this guy, see where the pages are, and so there's the other part of it, all the machinations of sort of getting the stuff in and hitting deadlines and making sure that they go to production in the right way, and get out on time. There's a lot, the editors and associated editors are the people who, I mean, they're like associate producers of TV. Like, there's these people out there who do all of the work, and it's so much work, and they're unsung for it. That's why I tend to picture those kind of folks.
From the top down, the publisher does the creative and business aspect of the entire line they're doing. So, like, they decide how many books are being published,
what the budget is, how many books, how
what's
going
to be an ongoing series versus what's going to be a mini series, what trades are going to come out, when are the hardcovers. Like, they're sitting at the 40,000 foot level of deciding all the business aspects of the line. The publisher is.
You just said that.
I'm saying the publisher is still involved in creative decisions, but it's mostly about the business. For Marvel or DC, it's like, oh, there's a Harley Quinn movie coming out. Let's make sure we've got a Harley Quinn miniseries that month. So there's that kind of thing. The editor-in-chief is more on the creative side, working with the publisher.
Figuring out that line-wide sort of direction, the voice of the whole thing.
Figuring out which creators to use on which, books, big picture stuff. they're all the editors feed up to them, and they're sort of overseeing the big picture of in Marvel and DC, the shared universe situation.
And a lot of times it's that person's sort of creative push that is sort of driving everything one way or the other. They're sort of setting the tone in that way. But again, all of that stuff is really, really variable. Who knows? I don't understand how it worked at DC at all. I don't know what Bob Harris did in one single capacity. I've never heard his name come up in any way other than to mention that he was still there.
Like all you heard was that doing the editor-in-chief.
Didio was functioning as the editor-in-chief as far as I could tell from sort of
who knows.
Yeah, that's what it seemed like.
And you're right. I mean, the editor does oversee. Usually, editors at the big two oversee like a line of books. Like one guy will see all the Spider-Man books, one guy will see all the Superman books. So they coordinate all those. Yes and no. The same guy will edit almost all the books from the line. Like Nick Lowe does all the Spider-Man books.
Yeah, but he's got like the people probably working individually. So like he's the manager, and then there's district managers,
and they're doing the overall editing. They're doing the story, make sure all the stories work together, and creative teams. And then as you said, the assistant editor, the associate editor, is doing like the day-to-day trafficking.
And then in between there, you'll have
where are the pages? Get those pages to the colorists. Get them to the publisher. That's what the associate editor does.
And these names are all a little, interchangeable to a little. So then above them, sometimes between editors and editor-in-chief, there'll be an executive editor, like a Tom Brevoort person. It's
all wonky because they got to make up titles for people who've been there forever. I accidentally closed my script. So
yeah, I think that pretty much. And then the colorist colors the comics. So there's that.
you read the next one.
John L. says, it feels like we're transitioning to a new era in comics that might have a historical impact like we haven't seen since the launch of Image. All right, I'm willing to follow along with you here, but so far I'm not with you. If the big two truly pulls back and focuses on A-list books, it could create a vacuum that gets filled by indie publishers and creators. It reminds me of Amazon crushing Borders and Barnes & Noble, which has created a small resurgence for indie bookstores who serve niche audiences after the big boxes are shuttered. Creators turning to Kickstarter and Indiegogo look like they'll be having incredible success during the upheaval at DC and Marvel. Sly Stallone and Keanu Reeves are even jumping in.
Sly.
Yeah,
not Sylvester Stallone.
Frank Stallone are jumping in now, and I kind of love it. If mid-list creators and people trying to break in can't get published by the big two anymore, I want them to have options.
Sure.
I want them to have that too.
I mean, it's not really a question here. Yes, I think options are good. I think where I have a problem is when publishers use Kickstarter and Indiegogo. That's not why those were designed. They were not designed to offset risk from publishers. They were designed to give people, like John talks about, who have no other option of publishing a place to publish or to fund their work. They weren't given. Kickstarter wasn't created so that Image could offset its risk on Scott Snyder's book, or Archie could do that a few years ago. That's not why Kickstarter is around and should be around. I think it's bullshit when the publishers use this one.
Yes, I also think that it belies an underlying issue is that the quote unquote established publishers feel like that's a thing they might have to do sometimes, like that it's sort of the ground is not as secure under them as otherwise. But to kickstart a book that Keanu Reeves is involved with is ridiculous.
Yeah, that's Boom. I don't think Boom should be doing it either. No,
I agree. It just to me it's a bad look. Now I think that people are starting to look at it as more as a pre-selling method.
Right.
But I don't like it. I don't like it because it's under the auspice. Even if they're doing it that way, which is fine, it's a business practice. But like that's a space that people have. It's like there's the farmers market, and then the Albertsons chain comes in to sell their onions there. It's like no, this is for these people. You need to stay out of this.
If the publishers want to start taking pre-order money, then start taking pre-order money. Mm-hmm. I'm not talking about from like Diamond. I'm talking about if they want to come out to readers and say, hey, we're making a book next year with writer X and artist Y. Send us your pre-orders. Do that, but don't do it through Kickstarter because then you're pushing out the people who need it, who actually have no other option.
So getting that out of the way. A new era for comics? I don't think so. I think that there's a squeezing.
It might be. I think it's a new era. It's just not in the way he thinks it is. It's a new era in the other direction.
What it means is that those people will still be able to make those books, but they won't be able to make livings off of them. The people who are below, I mean, if you think about it, if Marvel and DC are going to squish their lines to just the sort of biggest chunks of it, that means there's less jobs. There's less jobs there. There's making less books, which means that comic stores are going to also make less money. And because they are making less money, they are not going to spend more money on things that they're not sure are going to sell. And so what that does, it doesn't leave room for lower tier characters. It squishes out their possibility to make any money from it. It's antithetical. It's almost like comics does work as a trickle down economy in a way, because if they're not spreading the money around, then there's no money. And the idea of making a career as a comic book professional seems like it's going to get harder and harder. If you think that, like if DC halves their line, that's half the people out of work. Like, and there's not a place to go that you're going to get paid a living wage at the extent that you would at Marvel or DC. I know, because I know that the page rates at Dark Horse, Boom, Dynamite, they're much lower. They're considerably lower, and you can make a living, but you'd have to do several books, but there aren't several books now. And that it's bad. Now, artistically, creatively, money having nothing to do with it, great time. But except you'd have to get noticed, and there's so much stuff that it's hard to get noticed, I think.
Let's do Greg M. If iFanboy had to rob a casino, a la Ocean's 11, timely email, Greg, who would have what role?
I think that I would be one of the worst.
You would be terrible
burglars ever.
You'd have to be like the guy who stays back. Who's the guy? Who's the tech guy?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Linus?
Like the sweaty. No, Linus is Matt Damon. I wish I could be. Matt Damon. Linus was at least confident, but didn't act like it. But he was. Yeah, the sweaty.
He was very confident.
Yes,
he was. Let's not go to this
round. I am competent. I just not at any of the things required to do a large scale burglary. Who are you? You're
bad at lying.
I'm the world's worst liar.
There's no way you are actually you're back at the base coordinating computers, and oh shit, this guy's coming. You're not at all the guy who has to go to the casino guard and be like, oh, I lost my badge. Let me in there, Bob. Like that's not you.
No.
I
get nervous just watching them in the movies.
In the chat room, they say you're the this will never work guy. This will never work.
Oh, I'm totally that guy. Like the thing is, like, none of those sort of robbery crews need a guy who does commentary.
Yeah, you're doing commentary. You're on Twitch commenting on the heist.
You're also a real good guy, and I mean that in the sort of classic sense, like you wouldn't rob somebody. And so it's difficult.
We're saying we have to. Like, we have to. He says we had to.
So, like somebody's in the hospital.
Something's going to happen that's really bad unless we rob this casino. And that,
That I could do. I could do that. Like, given the sort of... then I would want to be Matt Damon, because it's the best. Like, I know I'm not Clooney or Pitt. I know I'm not going to pull that off.
It's kind of funny. Like, what did Clooney actually do? In the first one, he had to get beaten up and taken. But, like, Clooney kind of in the 13 in 13 he didn't really have anything to do. He like got the high rollers out.
He's CEO.
Yeah, he doesn't
the team together and over and he was working through the like they'd say what the problem is and he'd go no that doesn't work, and then let other people work it out. He's management.
Of his job in 13 was just sort of be in the casino. He's like a decoy.
Yeah, well, he's too hot.
I could be a decoy
in multiple ways.
I'll decoy the shit out of that. All right. You read the next one.
Adrian Z asks, can Jean Grey operate a smartphone or tablet with her telekinesis?
This is where we miss having Ryan on the show. No.
Well, is it the capacitance? Like, is there a physical component of that? There must be.
I don't know. I mean, I know when you open the phone, it's reading your it's not your fingerprint so much as like it's like reading the heat. Like, there's a bunch of components when you're unlocking your phone. So I don't know that she could unlock a phone because there's no there's no blood in her telekinesis touch.
There's not heat. There's pressure. So like turn the flashlight on the screen.
You could press the button. She could press the button,
Right. Yep.
but not. So I guess if she's haptic, she could
make it silent. What about operating a stylus? Like if one of the $100 Apple Pen, that would work.
Have you seen those? They're cool.
They'd have to be for $100.
My boss at my old job had one, and it was awesome. I would never buy it myself, but
I don't want to know because
it was cool.
I don't want to get to the point where, like, because right now I can look at it and go, that's ridiculous. There's no need to pay that. But I can very much see a thing where I would start playing with one, and I go, oh, I get it. And then I would buy it.
He's also a really good artist, so he would be sketching out things, and it would work for him. But, like, there's no reason if you're not using that for that. There's no. You would have no reason to have one.
No, I know. I have lots of things I have no reason to have. I have 11 guitars.
Well, you can play them.
That's true.
Why am I so blown out right
now? Dark.
I just lowered the light way down. It's so weird.
Alexa, turn the lights off.
So you got one of those. So you got Amazon listening to you. That's nice.
Whatever. They know everything anyway.
Here we go. Here's the next email. Where are we at? Pete F. from San Diego, California. During lockdown, I've been rereading a lot of old favorites, and I noticed something. There are a lot of great stories where main characters were either partially or totally dicks. Tony Chu, Mark Grayson, Jesse Custer, Thor Odinson, John Constantine. So is the story better when the lead kind of sucks, but the supporting cast is amazing, or is it just a coincidence of a good character arc? Been thinking about this since lockdown started. So 25,000 equivalent years.
Bravo.
Was Mark Grayson an asshole?
I think by the end he kind of was, because his dad was an asshole. But the real answer to me is that I'm like, the characters can be dicks as long as there's a heart underneath it. So the thing about John Constantine is that he's absolutely awful, but he is trying to do the right thing in the best way that he can, but he's useless at doing it. There's a heart underneath it. Tony Chu's kind of the same way. Although I will say, the more that I've spent time with Tony Chu, I'm like, I don't really like him. He's just very uptight. He's, he's got a rough life. Jesse Custer's not a dick. Jesse Custer is the best friend you'd ever want to have.
Yeah, I don't think Jesse Custer was a dick at all.
Thor's thing is he's a totally fun guy, but he's got so much responsibility that he has to ignore it and be hard-assed because that's his position. Those guys aren't dicks. I think the stories that are about like people who are generally awful don't work for me.
I mean, Tony Soprano, Walter White, the entire modern TV era is predicated. Don Draper, it's predicated around assholes.
There has to be another part of it. So Tony Soprano is awful, but the fact is the guy, or at least the actor playing him, has some sort of charm or charisma to him, so that you're watching and like for him, for example, you want to root for him for some reason. And it's the same thing with Vic Mackey or something like that. You find they're awful. They're objectively awful, but you keep finding yourself rooting for them for some reason that is, I think, indefinable. But then they let you down.
We all like the asshole because we all want to be the asshole. That's why we like anti-heroes. We want to be able to tell our boss to go fuck off.
So it's one of the reasons I actually don't like Breaking Bad all that much. Like, it's a really good show. I watched all of it. I was into it, but like, what's his name?
Walter White.
Walter White. Yeah. I had a really hard time finding anything I liked about that guy. Like, at a certain point, like, why is he just doing this? Whereas like Tony Soprano has this little element that like he kind of wants to be a good person, you can tell, but he can't do it for all sorts of reasons, and that's interesting. What's a show where like somebody is objectively awful that you could watch that person as the main character? I mean, even Archie Bunker works because underneath all of that crap, he's still a sweetheart. But like Donald Trump, that's the only
Curb Your Enthusiasm.
I can't watch Curb Your Enthusiasm.
I love that show.
Again, makes me uncomfortable.
You like him because he's the guy that says the things you don't get to say.
And sometimes that's funny, but I feel like that there has to be, for it to really be successful and not just super nichey, like there has to be kind of a heart underneath it. Most of the time, it's not a hard and fast rule.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I think so, but also like Tony Soprano might have had a heart, but he was still a murderer.
I know, but that was the dramatic tension of it is that he'd keep breaking your heart because he's a sociopath, and like that was what his family was going through, or the people around him. Like that was the thing that was funny about that. Not funny, but that's the thing that's. I've thought about this a lot because I've watched through that show a bunch of times. And again, it's the same thing with Vic Mackey. Like they're bad. They're bad people. But
on Seinfeld, the characters on Seinfeld is in the chat room. Ricky Gervais on The Office.
Ricky Gervais on The Office is a tragic character. He really does want to.
The Always Sunny characters. Good luck finding any of the redeeming qualities in them.
No, that's true. But also, I don't watch that. I don't watch those things because of the narrative structure and the character base. That shit's just real funny. No. Those are good examples. Like it has to be really good to get away with it. I think.
Let's do the next. Daniel C.
Daniel
9.
C. from Texas.
Yep.
Partly out of desire to support artists, but admittedly more out of deeply ingrained habit, I still buy my music instead of just streaming it. Am I just being a Luddite, or is there something different about owning an album instead of just having access to it? Didn't we just talk about this in the Media Explode?
In the Media Explode, you talked about it. Not exactly but yes.
Okay. What's your feeling on this?
You're not a Luddite.
Well,
I only stream music in my car. My car has streaming channels. So that's the only time I stream music. Otherwise, I listen to either my albums on vinyl or what I have on my iTunes, which I have. But does streaming, does he mean like streaming, like Spotify?
I mean, I think he just means digital music. So when he says buy his music, I assume that means CDs.
I buy songs one-offs digitally, usually for the show.
Really?
But every once in a while, I buy songs that I've heard I like on like Amazon. But for the most part, 90% of my music buying is the vinyl albums. So if you're a Luddite, so am I.
Well, I mean, have you met Connor? I don't. There's no point in CDs to me at all because the quality. CD is a digital file. It's exactly the same thing that you would either download and keep on your phone or do whatever. I spent a long time not subscribing to a digital service, but when I started subscribing to Apple Music, I finally got to get all the things that I could never buy, and I could be like, oh, this is music I've always wanted to check out and always listen to. It made my life immeasurably better. And then the thing that happens with me is I will listen to streaming, I have unlimited data. I can listen to whatever I want, whenever. I can download stuff to my phone. I can listen to everything I want. I know it's not the best thing for artists, but also they signed up, so I'm going to let them sort that out. But when there's stuff that I love, when I want to actively listen to something, records have become extremely important to me. And that is a different thing than the digital file that a CD has, or, whatever it is. For me, just like the method of CDs doesn't make sense because it's just this thing.
Well, I mean,
that doesn't need to exist or take
my old car had a CD player because it was
mine still does, but
so I bought occasionally a couple of CDs just to have.
I have a wallet of like 20 CDs that I've owned for, the last CD I bought was in 2005. And I keep it in my car in case for some reason I lose access to all that stuff, but it doesn't happen much. And I've done like A/B with it just because I was, I have the CD and I put and it was like the difference was not measurable. Vinyl, there's a difference. I'm in my office. I have two big 6-inch, woofer speakers pointed at my head for when I work. I've got a record player, with a the whole setup. It's not super expensive, but it's like you can feel it and hear it, and it's amazing. And also, I love that tactile thing, and I love that money's going directly to the artist. But I don't buy every record. Like a record has to be something special for me to want to make it part of the collection. Like the books.
I'm lucky in that. Lucky for my wallet and everything is that I have a cabinet that has my record player in it. It has 2 slots for records, and once that's filled, that's it. No more records are allowed. So they have to really be good. Now I got around this by saying we have to take the Christmas albums out, put them in a Christmas box, put those away with the Christmas stuff. So that freed up like this much space in the. So, but there's a rule. No more records once that records or spots are filled. So I have to really like the album I'm buying to to buy it. But I buy that. I still buy them regularly. I have one. I just bought one recently.
The thing about records is, like, yes, it does sound better, but I don't think that's what it's about. Like, for me, I have this very specific memory of, like, it feels just like looking for back issues. And I don't want to do that anymore because I have access to all. But, like, when you make the music into a ritual, one of the problems with streaming with digital comics, too, to a certain extent, is just too much. You can't ever make a decision.
Well, it's like TV.
You have to invest and commit to something to play a record. You have to be there. You kind of can't ignore it.
And you also have to buy a record that you're going to want to play the whole record.
Exactly.
You can't just buy a record that has one good song on it. You have to find an album that you like the whole.
Pain in the ass.
Sure, but you really, at least for me in my limited space, it's got to be an album that I'm going to listen to the entire thing.
Someone just said that I'm a collector, and it's not true. Actually, I'm a very compulsive buyer. I have to stop myself from buying everything because I guess that makes me a collector in a way. So I have to very carefully curate this because I can't go to shows. That's what I did. That's what I did for fun. My thing for fun would be to go to rock shows. That's what I did. That's the thing that my therapist was like, keep doing that because that seems to make you happy. And because I haven't been able to go to a show in 6 months, I've just bought I've got a shitload of records, and like I'm buying them from Europe now. Like
I'm going to support Kid Keith in the chat room, who you chagrined and is now feeling bad that you said that. He is 100% a collector, whether he agrees, understands it or not. Which is nothing wrong with. There's nothing wrong with collecting things. There's nothing wrong with it.
Physically, like, I don't want to have that much. I know that I won't stop. Yeah,
you have a lot of albums. How many albums do you have? Top of your head?
I mean, for a while it wasn't more than 50, but then in the last year, 6 months, it's exploded. I'm probably a couple hundred, few hundred, or something like that. Now, like I have a few shelves downstairs that have records on them, and I have a small box here that I keep in my office to sort of. I bought a lot of records since this pandemic thing has happened.
Ro P from Calgary, Alberta, Canada. Two questions.
One, I have been thinking about that for about 6 months. Is there a pick of the week that you have reread and regretted making the pick of the week? No, I can't think of any books that I've gone back and done that.
That's a secret question about your scalped pick.
No. Two, I've been thinking. No, just because it's pretty transitory. I've been thinking about this for 3 months. How many patron picks that you said you would keep reading are you still reading? I don't have any way to keep track of that.
Yeah, I don't know. I have no idea.
Normally, here's the only thing that would make that not happen is that with the influx every Wednesday or Tuesday and Wednesday of all the stuff, there's a really good chance that I could miss something because I will have completely forgotten about it unless I notice that cover.
Yeah. I just have no idea what we've said we would keep reading or not keep reading. Someone asked if that wasn't also our Batman and Robin a pick of the week. That was Jicorio. And the answer is yes, and it was an ironic one from Josh. Josh picked it ironically way back then, and I picked it for real.
But I would then, on the other side, I wouldn't regret that now. Now, knowing what I know now, knowing
no regrets.
No, I don't. We're not regretters with this. But most of the time, if I say I'm going to read the next patron pick, well, I will. It's because I like the thing. I mean, I don't think we're very.
Yeah, no one's lying. The only if I forgot, which definitely could happen.
Yeah, we're old, but
also I usually keep up, but maybe later I stop. Maybe after 2 issues. I don't know. I don't keep track of this information. Yeah. Evan M. My favorite Batman villain is the Riddler, and while I enjoy certain appearances of his, I can't think of the definitive Riddler story, and that I would hand to someone to best represent the character. Who is your favorite Bat villain, and what would you consider to be the story arc that demonstrates why they are great?
Ooh, that's a good question. Because I've spent the last 2 years complaining about the Joker, but my instinct is like, oh, the Joker.
It's a Joker. It's a killing joke. Next.
That's
my answer.
Can I tell you something awful?
Yeah.
It's not awful. I have a cousin, and he's.
That's not awful. We all have cousins.
I know, but he's pretty basic. And if that gets the idea across, and he said something the other day about comic book movies, and it was like a civilian talking about comic book movies, and I don't like to get involved in that conversation, but one of his dimwit friends was like, you know what? Oh, it's like, what's your favorite Batman movie? And he's like, Batman Forever, man, because nobody owned the role of the Riddler like Jim Carrey. And I was like, I walked out of that movie. I left.
First of all, I love this guy. I want to hang out with him.
No, I'm sorry. I take it back.
This guy says things like that. That's amazing.
It wasn't Jim Carrey. It was. I'm sorry. I got it wrong. It was Tommy Lee Jones as Two-Face.
Okay.
And I was like,
I was gonna say, take this guy
Two-Face at all.
Yell Frank Gorshin in his face.
Right. Sorry. Just aside.
He thought Tommy Lee Jones was better than Aaron Eckhart.
The point is, like, there's no context.
And
for a second, I thought, I should tell this guy, what are you doing?
Don't do it.
No, I know that. Like, but it's taken decades of doing this to be able to know. Don't get into that conversation. It's pointless.
No winning.
What
were you hanging out with your cousins?
That was a Facebook post.
Oh, okay.
I did hang out with my cousin.
So it wasn't really hanging out.
I didn't say I was hanging out. I said I was. I saw.
Should we call them up?
He lives here.
Give him the link. Let's get him on the show. Talk about the Riddler.
No.
Okay.
It was his friend who said that.
So I'm saying Killing Joke Joker. What are you saying? Best Batman villain definitive story.
I don't know that I have a best. I really don't have an answer because I don't.
Calendar Man?
It's not.
Is it Egghead?
No. I mean, can I say like Batman's own self-destructive nature? That's my favorite Batman villain. It's true. Like that's the thing. Like his hubris and his inability to sort of come to terms with himself, and so he will always be.
Your favorite is Shame.
Shame. I know I have some that I really like, but I can't. Like I find Mr. Zsasz terrifying.
I love Mr. Zsasz.
Mr. Zsasz is really cool.
That first story that Norm Brayfogle drew in Batman Shadow of the Bat, where they introduced Mr. Zsasz, that still haunts me because as was it whatever I was in high school when it came out, young high school, like freshman. It imprinted on me.
If I had to really think about it, I think Mr. Freeze, like the Batman animated series, kind of think is because he's so ambiguous. Like he's not evil. It is. Yeah. He
would make a great character to lead a golden age of TV show because his motives are sad.
Yeah. Andrew M. of California. Let's say Marvel and DC have asked you both to choose a writer/artist pair from each company, 4 people total. This is getting more complicated. To create a Marvel DC crossover event. What writer-artist pair would you choose to represent each company if you wanted to highlight the top creators associated with each company from the last decade? Example would be Snyder/Capullo to represent DC, for example. Bonus question. I think you've used up your question, Andrew. Pick 2 characters, one from Marvel and one DC, for one of the many one-shot issues this crossover series.
I'm going to skip the bonus question.
Okay.
The main question is actually pretty simple. Who would you say the writer-artist, not necessarily work together, but who's the writer-artist that best represents the last 10 years of Marvel and DC? Now, keep in mind, that means 2010 to 2020, because I would have said Bendis, but he was 2000 to 2010. Mm-hmm. He's not 2010 to 2020. Bendis is the definitive Marvel writer from 2000 to 2010.
Yes.
Jeff Johns is the definitive DC writer from 2000 to 2010.
Yes.
The question is, who are the definitive writers? And for DC, that's basically the New 52 because that's 1 year before the New 52. So it's who's been the definitive DC writer for the last 10 years? I
have a very hard time with that question. I mean,
you could make a case for Tom King, but he's not populist. He's like a niche, a prestige.
He would do what to me would be a fantastic Marvel DC crossover, but it would not be what the kids are looking for.
It would be about his war rage.
It would be great. It would be about, like.
I think you have to say Snyder for DC. You have to, because that Batman run sort of defined the company for however long it was.
It's true.
And then
is it us? So this is us not choosing somebody we would want to represent.
No, it's just who was the question is really what writer-artist pair would you choose to represent Marvel and DC if you wanted to highlight the top creators associated with each company? So you have to pick the top creators associated with each company from the last decade. So that's really the question.
So who's the guy at
Marvel?
Is it Jason Aaron? I mean, last 10 years, Avengers, Thor.
Avengers. I mean,
Dan Slott.
We talked about this. Like, for whatever reason, Avengers leaves no blip on the radar. It's in stealth mode. People don't even know it gets published. Thor
it's Al Ewing right now.
Thor was really great, but like, Was Thor the book that you think of defined Marvel for the last? I'm not saying it's not. I'm just trying to think of. I don't even know what book it is.
So here's the thing: the movies define Marvel. The books didn't define Marvel. The publishing line took a backseat to the movie line. At least the main thrust of publishing.
You're having Kevin Feige write that book?
Yes. I mean, if you're looking at it that way, if you take a 20-year view, it changes the conversation a little bit. But
no, 20-year view is Bendis, no problem. It's without a doubt, yeah.
Yeah, Bendis and Johns. And then all right. So let's. Well, I mean, Jason Aaron is the best answer I can come up with for that.
Yes, although I just don't know that Thor was pervasive, and I didn't you don't think of.
No,
I think of Thor amongst the best comics of the last however long, but I don't know that Thor defined the company for 10 years, for the last 10 years.
I know, but the point is there isn't, so you got to pick the best. It's either him or Dan Slott. It's not Matt Fraction.
Nope.
It's something like that. It's just
what this reflects is the thing we've been talking about is that there are no superstars.
No.
In the last 10 years,
Look
especially
for artists, though. It's not Capullo. I think he's niche and he's only associated with one character.
It's not niche, but he's only associated with one character.
Not niche, but like it's like Ivan Reese or Gary Frank or
yeah, you can make a case for Gary Frank. He's done a lot of prestige books. There are fewer superstar artists than there are writers.
I mean, if I had to pick a guy, like who should be the guy who does this, I'd say Doc Shaner, but that's not, you know what I mean.
Yeah. He's on his first high profile book right now.
Who would be, which artist at Marvel is setting the tone? That's because
John Carter, Pepe Larraz.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like, it's the age of the superstars over, man.
Yeah, when you think of a Marvel book, what are you seeing in your head?
For a while at Marvel, it was like Mike Deodato, like that was the guy. Now I think of
yeah,
the opposite
the previous decade.
Who's the Spider-Man artist? Who's the alternate for Otley? Cartoony guy.
I'm drawing a blank.
Yeah, I can't think of it. Like
Bagley?
No. I mean, it's amazing. Like we can't think of who those people are because they're not.
They're not, and the companies don't want them.
No, they don't. They don't.
They want the characters to be the draw, which they are.
How much? You know what? Stegman is probably.
I don't know if he defined the company.
Ramos.
He's terrific. But I don't know.
He is, but like I feel like they want him. But like, yeah. Look at. I mean, like
they're all great artists, but no one is defining the company. No one's making everyone go, holy shit.
This is the guy who's changed everything going forward.
No one is McFarlane in 1980, whatever.
Humberto Ramos. That's who I was thinking of.
God,
that's the best I got.
A guy in like his late 50s.
I know. I mean, but there isn't a guy like that. There's people who set the tone. I mean, I hate to mention his name a second time, but Van Sciver was that in the 2000s. It was like, this is the guy who is DC Comics art. For that period of time that he was, or before that, Ed McGuinness was the guy. He's been that for both. Jock is not the guy setting the DC tone. Like,
no, not at all.
Right now, Immonen. There's a lot of people. It's tough, man. There isn't a name.
Immonen retired. Like,
you need to pick. If you're asking, like, probably, like going forward, I think Donny Cates probably not the whole decade, but in the past handful. Mark Waid actually has done a lot of great work in Marvel over the past 10 years.
Sure,
he's another guy.
Is that a name you associate with like when you think about 2000, 2010? It is Bendis writing Marvel books.
Mm-hmm.
There isn't a name you think about for the last 10 years for either company like that. The Marvel universe ran through Bendis's books for 10 years.
I mean, you're right. Like, it's Snyder. Like, he's the only guy you've even got a shot with at DC. That's the closest and most obvious one, and I think that tells you so. So really, like if you're building that book, you've got to choose what kind of which section of Marvel you want, or which section of DC you want to represent, because that's what it's going to be. And if that's the case, it's going to be Al Ewing and Pete Tomasi. That's who it's going to be. Honestly, those are the people who most represented over the past 10 years. Or fucking Steve Orlando.
How about a question we can't answer?
Okay.
Aaron S. from North Carolina. What happened to Daryl? And why did he stop calling the iFanboys from payphones while stalking the streets of New York? We've answered the question before, but I'd like to answer it.
I believe that you have done no research on this.
Also, we don't have a line to call anymore.
That's true.
So even if he wanted to call, he could not.
That's the number one reason why he stopped calling.
It's funny. I just came across Daryl in one of our video shows. He did like we had him do like a little stinger at the Comic-Con, and we used it in one of our videos. Mm-hmm. He became a mogul.
Yeah.
He started a podcast network. He has, I don't know if it's still going because I just don't keep up with it. But he started a show. He got other shows. He had a network. He became his own comics podcast guru.
Mm-hmm.
And didn't he call us right at the end?
Yeah, he's called us.
Like when we shut the line down for that last time?
Yeah, I think so. No,
I liked it. I loved that era.
Involved with comics. He's still part of. I just like we're not part of any of that community stuff, so we don't know anything.
It was a great era.
Yes.
That question will come up later. Let's do the next question.
What was the?
We're at 14.
Okay, so Alex T says, I've been thinking about this question for about 12 issues. That could be any number of years. Did Tom King leave his mark on Batman? Good question. Follow-up, is Tom King the great comic writer of the moment?
Let's do the first one.
Okay.
These are more difficult than you think.
Very
on first
difficult.
glance. On first glance. Did Tom King leave his mark on Batman? And at first my answer was no.
Oh, he did.
But then if anything, for the marriage / Catwoman stuff, yes.
He was on that book for.
You changed the game. You changed the character.
Yes.
You know. I would even put Tom King's Batman below all of his other works in terms of like impact. Like
it was always interesting.
Uneven. It was super uneven. And I said that someone who loves his writing and a huge fan and is a great guy, but the highlights for me sort of drowned out the low lights, which was like in the beginning, he couldn't quite figure out what he was doing with Batman.
I don't think he knew.
No, he didn't. Because
I asked him, I had him on the show when he was about to start, and I really got the sense that he was like, I don't know.
Well, I ran into the Comic-Con when he got announced as the writer, and he said, my goal is basically do the Batman the Animated Series. And that's not what he did.
No. But it's funny because that first arc was super actiony. It was
that was
Gotham
the closest
Girl, and
yeah, that was the closest it came.
And then he found whatever his thing was, and I liked it. Like overall, there were parts that
even if like the whole Bane stuff was kind of
if nothing else, he has a supreme eye for art talent, and so he knew, let these people draw it, and I will write to their strengths, and we'll just do that and keep it interesting. But that whole time, I remember you and I just being like, do other people like this? They can't, right?
Right.
And that is an impact, because the fact is they didn't let him finish his story. I don't think because it was successful. Those books never came out, by the way.
I don't know if it wasn't successful. I mean, you're talking about the top book of DC, which took a no. when he was on it.
Yeah, no, I know, but they decided to take him off of it, and they put.
If he was successful, they would let him finish his story in Batman. They wouldn't have brought him. They wouldn't have moved him off into a. And I think the only reason and this is total speculation, which will be totally wrong, but I think the only reason they moved him off and let him finish his book in a miniseries was because he became the next question with Mr. Miracle and the Vision and other books. His level of prestige went high up in terms of awards and accolades.
Yeah. And he could move units of books, which is.
But you're right; those Batman Catwoman books have never come out.
That's amazing.
I'm all right with that. I mean, I love him, and I love. Who's the artist? Clay Mann, but I'm not super thrilled by Catwoman and Batman being a couple, so I'm not in a hurry.
But it was interesting to read. At
the
end of the day, like, it was always interesting to read, even if you're like, I don't know if I liked that. But
those were great books. The closer you got to the wedding, I loved those books because I knew they weren't going to get married, so I was never worried about it.
And and the other thing is that he did the thing that Bendis always did really well, and other guys. Remender did this. He said, "I'm working with these artists.
Mhm.
These are," and like he made good books. He was interested in that. It wasn't workaday stuff. As we get into whatever DC is now, that doesn't.
And I want to be
focus
clear.
on-
I'm not saying they're never coming out. People in the chat room are saying they're going to come out. I'm saying they just haven't come out yet.
Yeah,
it's been a long time.
And it's been a long time. It's been many
So
months.
let's move to the next question, which is Tom King the great comic writer of the moment?
I don't think there's any such thing.
I think he's the only one in that if you announce, listen, anyone else you announce an Adam Strange 12-issue miniseries, no one gives a shit and doesn't get covered and no one cares and it's not a big thing every time an issue comes out. For whatever reason, he's tapped into these 12-issue minis focusing on a Vision or a Mr. Miracle or an Adam Strange, and that causes a ripple, and that by itself, I think, makes him the great comic writer of the moment. Even if it doesn't translate to super huge sales, it translates to great work. Well, and everyone who cares knows it's going to be great work.
So when we say the great comic book writer of the moment, that's a very subjective question.
Well, because the moment's different than the moment used to be. Because in the past, the moment would have been
but what's like great comic writer mean?
Alan Moore in 2000s was the great comic writer of the moment who was putting out 10 terrific books and they all sold a ton. But that's not how the comics are now.
I mean, I think it's just like anything else with a long tail theory. Everything becomes pick and choose. So there is no monolith. There is only bits, and you take the ones that you like the best. And because there's no one thing dominating everything, and those days might very well be over other than some blips that happen here or there. So it's hard to talk about things in that same way. Who's the great band right now? What's the most important TV show? No, I mean like current stuff.
Yeah, well, it
doesn't exist.
Yeah,
but yes,
I think he is. I think he is.
He's
because
we've got.
There's literally no one else who would make anyone care about a Adam Strange miniseries.
Not like that, no.
There isn't.
No, you're right. You're right. And
even if you keep the art team, it's not. You know, if I was going to say a name, but I don't want to denigrate anybody. If I announce I'm writing a book with Mitch Gerrits and we're doing 12-issue series on Ambush Bug, let's not say Ambush Bug, Firestorm, no one's going to care. Other than what the fuck is that?
I think
or who's this guy?
I think issue number 1 is going to sell gangbusters. Is what I think.
But if Tom King says the next miniseries that Mitch and I are doing is a 12-issue exploration of Firestorm, people are going to go, "Oh shit, that's going to be cool." That's what makes him great writer at the moment.
You're right. Yep, I'll give you that.
Robert B. on the video shows the opening segment of comics in a long box. Whoa. On the video shows, the opening segment of comics in a long box ends with Neil Adams' controversial cover of Speedy from Green Lantern Green Arrow 85. Why was this the comic chosen to close the opening segment?
Because it's rad.
No, because that's what the editor chose.
Really?
We didn't have input.
We gave him scans of
covers. We gave him the covers. We didn't tell him what order to put them in.
Right.
So that this was the editor chose. We hired a guy to create the opening for our video show. He said, "Send me like 15 covers that you like." We sent him 15 like classic or iconic or covers we just liked, and that was the one he chose to end on, and that was the reason. We never sent him notes. We never said, "Hey, that's weird. Don't do that." The heroin one. That's just because we were.
I remember
young.
taking photos of the long box that was used for that in my hallway.
Oh, really? I didn't know
Yeah. Like Lindsay and I like lit.
You must have done that, and Ron and I did the covers then, because I remember doing the covers.
Yeah. I did the pictures of the box.
But literally, the guy who made the video chose.
Well, I think that's interesting though, because we gave him a handful of them one, and like he picked that one, and I think we all would have been like, "Yeah, you should put that one there." That's like, I think it's really interesting that somebody who doesn't know anything about comics gravitates towards that cover. Like, I get that. When I didn't know anything about comics, I remember that cover.
And it's also interesting, like, it just goes to show most times there's not a reason. There's not a big reason. It's just things just happen. Things happen. Brian C. from Cleveland, Ohio, the best comic book city on the planet, according to Brian.
Well, they got Superman.
He has 2 questions. Number 1, we all know you're both digital readers nearly exclusively now. It's been a few years since Connor rid himself of most of his physical collection. I get the sense that neither of you miss having a collection as a whole, but do you miss anything but having a collection of comics?
No. I think every once in a while, which is like once or twice a decade, I will pull one of the little boxes out and look through it. I think I did it on one of these shows once, and we kind of went through them, and that was kind of fun. That is the end of the story, though.
It's been so long. I mean, obviously, it's been years since I got rid of my collection. But before that, it was so long since I had them handy. Like they were in storage for years. It wasn't like they were in my house and I would just leaf through them every now and then. It had probably been like 10 plus years since they were like around that I could leaf through them. So to me, like they didn't even exist anyway.
Do you know how like rich people, John Paul Getty has pieces of art all over his home and then a bunch of them in storage? I don't like owning things that I have nothing to do with. Like it doesn't do anything. What?
What records?
I get really stressed out when I think of the fact that I have records that I won't listen to. So I choose them very carefully when I get records, and I try to make sure that they're ones that I listen to, because otherwise I feel like I wasted my money.
I misunderstood what you said. I thought you meant nothing to do with, meaning I didn't create them. Like
no. I mean,
interface with.
Yes, yeah. Like then it may as well not exist. And then it means that I wasted money on it and it's taken up space. Right. And that's what a comic collection feels like to me now. I have a stack of them. If you were to come here tomorrow and be like, "Can I just take these?" I would say yes. I have no attachment to them anymore.
Now, if we were still doing the video show,
different story. Although, honestly, it'd be so much easier to just pull any image I need from the internet and do it that way. Now there's enough stuff and it's high res enough that it's faster. And I hated scanning.
Let's skip his saying. Let's go to Dan C. from Madison, New Jersey.
Well, Dan says, I've been thinking about this question since April 2017. Strong. Since my son started taking a tablet to bed with him so he could read Marvel Unlimited for an hour or two every night. That's a lot of comic book reading before bed. We've seen how training viewers on a binge model has changed the way that people consume TV. So how do you think kids learning to read comics by binging them, whether on Marvel or whatever DC Universe app, just sitting in the aisle of the damn Barnes & Noble reading manga while some of us are trying to walk? I hear you, pal. Then again, I haven't been in the bookstore in a really long time. Is it going to change the way the next generation of readers consumes comics, if at all? I mean, if you've got a kid who's reading comics at all from this generation, you've already lucked out, and that's an aberration.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it is, I think it's wrong to think about it as like the way that people younger than me or you, people who are kids, adolescents, and teens right now, their interaction with media of any kind is going to be wildly different than how you did. And it's just...
Things are changing for everything, and there's really no way to know how things are going to be in 20 years, or it's. I mean, I have a hard time thinking there's going to be single comics for kids to read, but maybe there will be. I don't know, but
I mean,
the way people consume is different.
The archive of them will always exist, but
no, but I mean, like, will a kid pick up a 22-page comic and read it? Probably not.
No, but I mean, it won't be a comic per se, probably, but I think it will also have a lot to do with the personality of the person. It's just like anything. Like, wow, I'm really into this. We didn't binge. I didn't binge Battlestar Galactica on DVD, because I didn't want to. Like it was like, this is awesome. You can do this thing and watch it. And eventually, like it lost its. The binging is a thing. Before there was digital, Connor and I found Preacher and we're like, holy shit. And we went.
I read all the volumes together.
You did whatever it took to go find them. It wasn't easy then. This was before the idea of binging was a thing, but that's what you did because it was like, shit, I need this. So the idea of like a kid goes out and starts reading Kurt Busiek's Avengers run and it's like, I cannot get enough of this. There's nothing bad about that. Especially
the difference in the long box and buying 10 issues in a row and reading them the same. It's just, but I do think there is a change in the culture where people they're like, I can't watch it all at once.
Yeah. And then you're like us, we hear that a show that we like is actually going to be released weekly. And we're like, oh, thank God.
I'm waiting for this to end so I can go watch Ted Lasso.
Yeah.
I actually skipped an email I did want to answer. So I'll do that one. CJ has two questions. Both of them I like. This first one, iFanboy was started 15 years ago. Well, not really, 20 years ago. iFanboy started 15 years ago and has gone through a number of changes behind the scenes. Do you have a favorite era of iFanboy? The early years, Revision 3, graphically, Patreon? Are there any favorite jokes, running gags? Some of mine are Rusty Auto Parts and Middle Management Risk Skull. What is your favorite era, Josh, of iFanboy?
I mean, I think the most exciting one, the one that seemed to have the most sort of like energy and future to it, would have been around the time where Connor and I were working on it full time, and we were doing the video shows.
The first 5 years.
No. Well, I mean, for a while it was just like a fun thing, and it was like people are listening to this weird,
5 years before the podcast.
No, that was definitely not it. No, so like 2008 through like 2010, about that 2 year period.
You go full time. Was it 2008?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
okay. 2008. 2010 is
pre-graphically too, like that first bit.
Yeah. Although the first year of Graphically was great. We got a budget. We got to pay our staff like what they deserved. We got left alone. I'm gonna go 2008 through 2011.
See, I'm not counting Graphically in there because there was a real bird on a wire risk to the thing, and we quit our jobs. We were making as little money as possible. We were involved with this startup on the internet doing TV. We did not know what was going to happen. It just could have been, and we were working for ourselves. We were responsible to nobody. 2010,
I think back the most fondly of, yes. Even though it was a drain financially and physically and emotionally.
But it's the time in my life.
It's fun. We were beholden to no one. We got to do what we wanted to do. I woke up in the morning and I was like, I'm gonna write what I want to write about. I'm going to do what I want. I'm going to shoot a video because we were doing 7 shows a week, 5 minis and a full length video show. And then this audio show. So it was like, what dumbass mini concept do I have to shoot today? That was super fun. I've never had that kind of creative freedom in my life and will probably never have it again.
It's also it was the last time, probably the only time in my adult life that all I had to do was get along with you and Ron. I mean, that's amazing to be able to do that. It was a little bit where, we were working for ourselves and my wife was working for ourselves around the time that she was pregnant. And I just like, this is a fantastic thing to show to our kids. This is the thing you can do. And then I had to get a job to pay for him.
But I mean, it was incredibly fun that period of time, getting to do whatever, and the website was fun. We had a great staff of writers. Everyone was funny. And then having to come up with so much content, a daily churn of website content,
we're real good at writing,
a daily churn of video content, I mean, 7 shows is a lot.
And we had to figure out how to manage that and run the business.
Colbert does 4 shows a week, and he has a staff of writers writing it. Mm-hmm. We didn't. It was the 3 of us doing these shows. And Josh and I had a day job. Josh and I are the only ones who were actually full time at iFanboy. And when I think about the good times, the golden times, when I think about it, like when I hate my job, whatever I'm doing at the moment, or I think about how much I enjoyed that. No, I don't think about how much I was not able to do anything or eat food or save $1. So yeah, poor, but like incredibly rewarding.
There's that. This has nothing to do with Ron. I really like Right Now. I really do. I mean, I think that the show is automatic is not the word, but it's very, very, very comfortable and it's very relaxing and it's very fun. And it is so satisfying to me that Connor and I still have so much fun doing it all the time. I mean, we've said this for years, but like it's the best part of the week. It's like we're going to do this for an hour and a half and it's awesome. And people still listen to it and react and we still have fun doing it. Like there's a confidence and a comfort to it that I still find very satisfying. I mean, it's very important to my, self worth and sort of being and like having that creative outlet, if you can call it, whatever it is. Like, I mean, everybody wants to go out and say whatever they think and post it on social media, but I can at least say some people tend to care what I think about, and that makes you feel good about yourself. Same thing with you, and to have you and I be able to agree or disagree about things, but talk about it in such a way that is sort of mentally satisfying.
I'll tell you what, we don't fight nearly as much now as we used to. Not
true.
I mean, like in the in that period of time, there was a lot of fraught, and not fight like it's dumbass fighting. It was arguing over comic stuff, which looking back on it was so stupid. But like, I don't even know the last time we argued about a comic thing. Like, I don't even care enough. Like, that's not, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We're going to take a brief detour into a second question before answering another question that's similar to the one we just answered. And his second question, which I just scrolled away from: what are your top 3 items at a barbecue?
Am I cooking or am I going to a
barbecue place? Let's say you're going to a barbecue establishment. What are the 3? You can only get 3 items, and it's just to make it clear, they're known for all of them. There's no better item.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
So they're all going to be equally good. If you could have the best of any items,
brisket.
Brisket's got to be in there. It's in every.
Brisket's number one. It's always my number one. If it's good brisket, then it's going to be better than anything else.
Yeah.
Probably pulled pork, and I'd probably choose that over ribs. Especially if you get pork, like brisket having a bark on it is a given. It must be. If you get a bark on pork, it's amazing.
Brisket. I'm a sausage guy. I always love to try the sausage. So brisket sausage. And
I often like the idea of the sausage more than the actual sausage.
You know what's awesome?
No.
I literally salivated so much I had to swallow it. Just saying those 2 words out loud: brisket and sausage.
Yeah.
Now, the third choice, as we talked about in the past, is always the hardest because you've got no more options left. And I want to say a pulled pork. I want to say a rib. It's also hard not to say chicken. I mean, chicken is, it's maligned as being basic, but I love a good barbecue chicken as well.
It's rare that follows through, though. Like if it's really, but like you just said, this is all the good stuff. So
honestly, it's probably brisket, sausage, and pulled pork. That's probably what I'm going to go with.
I'm going to throw a curveball here, and assuming this is all high test stuff, I'm going to go with cornbread.
It's a side. We get all the sides.
Yeah, but cornbread that's really good that comes with your barbecue stuff at a good barbecue place, like it's essential. It's like,
trust me,
it's like ketchup on fries.
I grew up. My parents are from Texas. I grew up eating cornbread. It's nothing I love more than sweet cornbread. Get out of here with your non-sweet cornbread. Get that shit out of here.
No, it's stupid.
So this is the question that was similar to the last one. Lance M. I'm loving being able to watch the old video shows. It was a big deal to be part of Revision 3 back in the day, and I wish that the other shows, Dig Nation, TRS, etc., would do what you guys are doing. What was it like being a part of Revision 3?
Let's say that I missed when you started reading this, and I can't read the question.
Okay. Number 25. I jumped a bunch of questions.
That's right. Okay.
I love being able to watch the old video shows. It was a big deal to be part of Version 3 back
I can see it now. I just wanted to be able to refer to it as I was thinking about it. What was it like?
It was fine.
I mean, we just kind of talked about it. Like being part of it. Listen. We didn't have the best ratings.
No, one thing we did find was there wasn't as much crossover as they would have imagined between the tech audience and the comics audience.
Yeah.
We were very separate audience.
Yeah, we pulled in our audience and we held on to them. We didn't add a ton. We added whoever it was that would have been a crossover initially, but that was kind of it.
For the most part, it wasn't a crossover. But we had one dumb meeting once. They gave us notes, and we basically ignored them. And other than that, we had basically no interaction with them.
Yeah, it was a little bit of a failure to launch kind of situation where it was going to be this thing. And we never really took off, and then they never really took off. And it was an awesome experience to do that for a while, and sort of get paid to do it as long as that lasted.
Yeah, I mean they paid well for our show, and I'm not well relative term to. I mean, at the time it was again equal when split between all of us equal minimum wage, but. Everyone there was nice. They were in San Francisco. We were in New York. We only went there a couple of times. I went there probably more than Josh because I went maybe 3 or 4 times to their offices. The executives were super nice.
Yeah, still are.
Ron was working there, so we had a certain amount of cover.
Yeah, that had a lot to do with it.
And
Ron really was dealing with them.
I think Ron dealt with a lot of the brunt of the network, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
But the service they provided, which was ostensibly ad sales, and then the platform on which to distribute your video show became irrelevant because after a few years, the technology to self-distribute came along, and they weren't selling ads against us. They were only selling ads against their biggest shows, which is fine. So we're out.
Also,
Peace.
I
Do this
didn't,
ourselves.
other than the TRS guys, who I still like very much to this day.
Mhm.
I didn't know any of their stuff, and none of those people who do the other things knew our stuff. Nope, Brian Brushwood. That was like the other person, like who was sort of cool
Yeah,
enough for me to.
well, that was a nice side benefit is that we have friendships. Like I still hang out. Not now, it's COVID, but pre-COVID, I had drinks with Alex Albrecht regularly, like a couple times a month. Kanata before he had a kid and moved to the Valley, but you know, we made friendships there that we still have to this day. And it was fun. It was great.
Like if I was in LA and it was like Jeff and Danny, I knew them better than Alex. I don't know Alex very well.
I didn't know we knew Jeff and Danny better then, but then moving out here, I got to know Alex better. We ended up in the same rotating social circle, and then finally was like, oh, and then we became friends. Yeah. And then I worked with him for about half a year, and then we.
There was a question, by the way, just real quick in the chat, like who was the original podcaster people? The before us was, I think, Comic Geek Speak started just before.
Comic Geek Speak started before us.
Around Comics started around that time. There was Augie. Augie was the first.
It was
Pipeline.
It was Augie, John, Around Comics, and Comic Geek Speak, and us.
Suntress. Yeah. So we didn't know any of that stuff when we started doing it. We're like, let's do this, and we started. And then we realized there were a couple of others.
You know what's really funny was I was, my project previous to this was to go through all the old shows and put the show notes up on our website, which I've done. Mm-hmm. Those early shows are bad, and if we launched now, we would not have a single listener.
No,
we were just real lucky.
But back then it was really funny because we did not know what we were doing. We were not trying, and like one week it would be like 300 people are listening.
Three of the first four shows, we didn't even read a book.
Yeah,
three of the first four.
The growth early on, I remember like pretty early on, I was like, we had 1,200 downloads this week. I was like, really? Like there are 1,000 people listening, it went pretty quick. And that unlike comic books, those numbers never significantly went down. We reached our plateau certainly at a certain point, but and then there's other things where like the way they count podcasts has changed. But it was like we got our audience, and then we just stayed with those people. And a lot of those people have been around. I'm always surprised. And so I was like, I've been listening for 5 years, and it's like, oh, 2015, shit.
So it's the time we've all been waiting for. We always look forward to this. It's the annual summary report on patron powers from the data analytics department at iFanboy.
Oh God. Oh my God.
Prepared
deck. I'm
going to take this off so we don't block any info. The annual iFanboy data analytics annual report compiled by the iFanboy data analytics department. This is for episodes 700 through 749, September 2019 through September 2020, compiled for Mr. J. Flanagan and Mr. C.S. Kilpatrick. Everyone's talking in the chat room. I did not make this report. This is the data analytics department.
Ask Carol. I don't even know those guys' names.
Chris. Chris, the data analytics department made this. I did not make this report. But let's go. Here we go. Section 1, 2019-20 patron powers. These figures relate to shows released 15 September 2019 to 20 September 2020. This is the 4th year of the Patron Powers program, Josh. 4 years.
Really?
Of doing it. Yeah. Changes to the program in this year include the reduction of powers bestowed from 3 per show to 2 per show, which happened on March 22nd, 2020, episode 723. Total number of powers bestowed in this year, 153. This compared to 200 the year before. 69 by Josh, 70 by me, 1 by us together. I don't remember that happening. Ryan did 7, Jim Viscardi did 1, Jim Mushkowski did 2, and Damian Sherman did 2. Total all-time powers bestowed. This is incredible. Total all-time powers, 755. 311 by Josh, 309 by me, 1 by us together, 81 by Ron, 37 by Ryan, 7 by Jim Viscardi, 4 by Paul Montgomery, 2 by Jim Mushkowski, 2 by Damian Sherman. In the last year, we bestowed 15 superhero names along with powers. Most favored power types in the last year: light-based power 4. Eric Seals can control ambient light. Patrick O'Kelly can shoot His toes are flashlights. Rusty Richardson is visible only to selfies. Super Gavin can emit any kind of light from his hands. Decontamination powers 4. Ryan Kendall is living space. His living space is always dust free. Evangelical car and shoes are always clean. Matt Nima can remove all stains from anything. Darren Goke can remove all stains. Also, we duplicated that power. 5 body morphing powers. Joe Coranda, his blood replaced by butterscotch pudding. Alive. Matt Bona can transform all limbs into foam rollers. Tim can control the growth of fingers and toenails. And he can grow and retract them equally. Dave Schweitzer can morph into any character previously played by Gary Oldman. That's great. That's a great power. I don't remember that one. Brett Matthews has hands and feet that can morph into surfboards. There's a guy playing music outside. Media Savant power 7. John Timothy Watt can tell if a remake of existing property is good. Ross Moore can determine if you have Netflix-worthy development deal deep within your soul. Gerald Oliver knows all the behind-the-scenes trivia about every movie. Brian Morgan retains a full walkthrough guide of every video game. Connor Kilpatrick can manifest. Oh, that's right. Damien gave us powers.
All right.
Connor can manifest his harsh desire, favorite viewing matter, and streaming services. So basically, he always knows what he wants to watch, or me anyway. Jake Ross can uncancel a TV show. Bryce Bridges can discern his degree of enjoyment of any TV show simply by watching the first 15 seconds of the credits. Food-related powers 8. Matt Paff can grow any vegetable. Kyle Sands can make bad food taste delicious. Philip Junek can produce any kind of ice cream from his hands. William Martin always orders the best thing on the menu. MCCN can tell which menu items he won't like or you won't like. Carl Erickson makes perfect bread for any occasion. Carl Kabul can transmute any food into any other kind of food. And Brad Briley can instantly marinate anything. Connor's top 5 all-time favorite power types. Number 1, food-based powers. Number 2, body morphing powers. Number 3, light-based powers. Number 4, stationary-based powers. Number 5, stationary-based powers.
Well, yeah, what's that?
I don't know.
Things that don't move?
No, I thought maybe like paper.
That seems more likely.
Number 5, vision-based powers. He's got numbers. You can see this on the screen. Josh's top 5 powers. Number 1, body abnormalities or mental powers. 2, food-based powers. 3, electronic powers. 4, body morphing powers, media powers, and transforming powers, all tied for 4, and 5 telecommunication powers. Patrons receiving more than 1 power for a variety of reasons over the years. 24 lucky patrons have been bestowed more than 1 superpower. Adrian Lilly got 2. Always knows that things will fit and can turn off on and off optical illusions at will. Andrew DeZingle knows the Wi-Fi password for all networks in every location and can see the number of hit points needed to defeat other people hovering above their heads. Sometimes
one of those is very good practically, and the other one is very funny.
Sometimes we miss a name. The list gets all screwed up. There's a whole long list here. I'm going to skip these. There's a lot of them. You can see on the screen. People with 2 powers. There's a lot of them.
Wait, what was mine? What did he give me?
Josh can identify actors from their voiceover work alone.
I can do that.
Except for the one guy in Avengers. And then also, once he refuses to sign up for retailers' marketing schemes once, he never has to do it again. Well, skipping these. iFan Grumbles. Oh, he's keeping track of iFan Grumbles. I didn't know.
Oh, wow.
3 were recorded this year. Only 3? Josh continues his ongoing crusade against left-handed panel stacking. Various books across the year. Connor hates the trend of companies making their heroes as unheroic as possible. This came to a head with the Daredevil 21. It's been bubbling under with numerous heroes from the Big Two for some time. Both Connor and Josh have voiced their dislike for the obligatory essay at the back of Image Ones. Actually, that's more Josh than me. I don't really care. Explaining every last detail, inspiration, and creative process of the book. Adventure Man 1 elicited this response. Here's a quote. Jeez. Quote, I'm fucking tired of that. Put that at the back of a trade. Don't put it at the end of the first issue. I don't have any context for it. I don't care yet. It's just too much explaining what's going on. Let the work speak, for Christ's sake. Don't tell me every thought you had that led up to it. It's driving me nuts. It's just not. It's not just this book. That's definitely Josh.
I stand by all of that. 100%.
Yeah. And finally, the final section, What Hurts? Commencing in episode 726, What Hurts is a new segment running on an occasional basis. So far, Connor, weird pain in the side of his knee, stabbing pain in the tendon of his thumb, and all-pervasive allergies. Josh, a sore bone in the outside of his foot, excruciating pain in the joint at the base of the left thumb, the site of a previous surgery.
That's true.
Are those still hurt?
I always want to bring that back. We don't have time for it now, but soon we're definitely gonna need to check in on this.
Are those things still hurting?
No, those are all good right now.
I mean,
There's other stuff. I have
my-
strained my neck.
My allergies are always annoying.
They've been bad here lately too.
Well, the fires have been driving my eyes crazy.
Oh, sure.
Stabbing pain in the tendon. No, that went away. I have a stretch I do for that. And then weird pain in the knee. Yeah, I still have that.
Yeah, I'll get that occasionally. That's always fun.
Yeah. So there you go. That's the analytics department report for this year.
That's great. Should we do
Which segues into thank you to the patrons, the patron powers.
Yeah.
So every week at patreon.com, we have patrons join up, and you give it the $5 or higher level, get your superpower live on the show. Guarantee Josh hasn't been thinking about it.
I have. I wrote it down at the beginning of the show because I knew I'd forget. I've just got to try.
Guarantee I was wrong.
Larry Davis. No. Larry Davis knows how to artfully end any conversation he chooses to. He can get out of any conversation nearly immediately, and he'll say the right thing, and it will not be awkward. No one will be left feeling badly. But it's time to end that conversation for Larry. He can do it.
I feel like there's envy in the power for you, Josh.
It's not envy. It's aspiration. Brandon
de Feli or de Pillis?
I mean, it looks like de Pillis. I mean, but it could be de Billy. I don't know. Doesn't look French.
When Brandon punches someone, they turn into Biff from Back to the Future for 1 minute.
Butthead.
They turn into Biff. Any version of Biffs. It could be middle-aged Biff. It could be young Biff. It could be cowboy Biff. But for 1 minute,
there's always Manure.
There's always Manure. You know how I thought of this power? It started with manure.
Sure.
This is what I'm telling you. My original thought was a guy who, like, dirt didn't touch, like it hit a force field, and I thought of the manure scene. I thought, oh, that's kind of dumb. Then I thought, well, Biff. Oh, that's interesting. And that's how I got to Biff. Punch a guy, turns in, or woman, or any whatever you identify as. You turn into Biff for 1 minute.
Do you think the weirdest thing that ever happened on Seinfeld was when George was convinced that manure was a great word?
Manure.
Because you've got the ma, which is good, and the noor, which is also good. Ma, noor. It's the weirdest fucking thing I've ever heard in my life, and I think about it all the time.
Let's jump to 29, Josh. 29.
Okay, let's do that. Jimmy S. of Jersey, the New Jersey, not the old one. I noticed there are a lot of homage or reliance to the 9-panel grid. Do you think there is an oversaturation of storytelling using the 9-panel grid? It seems like the artist is restricted to it lately because of the storytelling as well as the shorter page count. The writer, but I don't know what the writer refers to there.
Well, the artist would be restricted because of smaller panels.
Right.
We've talked about that with Gary Frank at Doomsday Clock, and with
that was very specific.
Yeah, but like that, I mean, it's just a fact of life. The 9-panel grid's smaller, so you're restricted in some sense. But I don't know if it's an oversaturation. No. There's only a couple of books of doing it.
It's just a stylistic choice that maybe you're noticing more because, I mean,
Tom King really likes it. Jeff Johns just used it. Like it's been in a couple of high-profile books, but
yeah, and I think it's a move for some folks, but also you got to those folks, people making those comics now, are going to be the ones that Watchmen hit them at exactly the point in their comic reading adolescence that they're going to think that they're doing that in that way. Like a guitarist is always going to, like, if Eddie Vedder was your guy, or not Eddie Vedder, Eddie Van Halen was your guy, then you're going to, that's going to be there. I think that's how it works. But, 9-panel grids, like if you go back and look at old comics like Golden Age, Silver Age, like, the panel, the compositions of the pages weren't all that dynamic. There would be 9-panel, or like they're pretty rigid until
what 9-panel gives you is more story to tell.
But now it's just a pacing move. I mean,
right, but also it allows for more panels on the page. Yeah. It allows you to tell more story. When you got to tell a 20-page story, it's hard. So 9 panels gives you more panels per page.
I will say, if you're like a Tony Harris kind of guy, or where you're doing 3 panels a page, that's a lot harder to make work now in the 20-page era, I think.
I don't believe he would do a 9-panel page comic.
No, but that's just because that's not his thing. But just
True. All right. Kenneth J. Why does your co-host have better comic book taste than you? Cite examples, please.
Ooh, that's a good
And
question.
I feel like altering the question
Okay.
to say why does he have good taste, or what? Because I don't think either one have better taste. We have our own taste.
Well, I mean, I think it's the same thing as what you're saying. It's like, what is it you admire about the taste of the other person?
Josh
I guess
is much more in tune with the structure and comics than I am. Like I definitely see it when I look at it, but I don't see it intuitively. I have to actually look. I'm more emotional reader. I read the story and then notice the structure.
I think
I
Connor
are honed in on the structure, and you're really good at analyzing it.
Thank you. I think Connor is more able to enjoy things. Because of what he just said and the way that I look at comics. I'm a chink in the armor person. I will look for something, and I want to find things that are good, but a thing can throw me off, and that error can stop me from enjoying the thing as a whole. I can be too analytical. So I think that Connor is better at looking at a thing and just deciding, like, I like this or I don't. I can take it or leave it with the spots that it has, but it's going to work for me or not. Otherwise, I have to work harder to like something. And it's exhausting.
I mean, I think we both have our taste, and I like our taste. I wouldn't, if I thought Josh had bad taste in comics, we would have a much harder time doing the show. I respect and appreciate Josh. Even when our tastes are different, I respect and appreciate them. There's always a reason for them. The consequence of doing the show is you have to explain yourself.
I mean, that's the only reason that this show's ever worked, is that we as a group collectively, and other people we have on, have very good taste. And that isn't to say that it's snobby or whatever, but there's reasons. Like, it's thoughtful. It's, like, there has to be a reason for something to be good or bad. And I always appreciate talking to people like that. It's Connor's the best person at that. Like,
even though not even when Ron was here, he had a very different way. I don't know if he's reading many comics these days, but we all had very different ways of looking at comics, which made the dynamic interesting, because what Josh would find really valuable, maybe Ron wouldn't care about, or what I liked about something. Right. Well, what I liked about something, maybe Josh wouldn't care. But like, it's all we're all coming at it from different angles, and it's not about indie or mainstream. It's just about the way you look at art, and it's, and I'll say this: I'm thinking much better at reading the structure because of having these conversations with Josh than I was when I started.
I mean, I've learned from having the same kind of. I think we're missing a valuable piece without Ron here, and I think it's one of the reasons that we never found another person to fill his shoes full time, because there is not another person like that. And
you just miss having an audience that you laugh at your jokes.
That was a different thing, is that I would just try to make him laugh, and if I could make him laugh, that meant that other people would be laughing, and it would be fine. No, but seriously, I think that he. I mean, obviously, I can be too, like, thinky, and
that definitely frustrated me back then. Like, I think talking about our arguments, that would be kind of the thing. Like, now it's just like, you get older and you just sort of accept what people like and don't like, and it may not like you like things the way you like them, but I'm much more mellow.
But we don't get, though, is we don't ever get that thing where I don't get to go, this sucked, and not be able to back it up.
Well, like, once in a while.
Well, yeah, but like, I won't really run out of that unless I know you're going to go with me, or you're at least going to think it's funny, because you're going to know why I thought it sucked, like the X of Swords or whatever.
I tell you, the most fun I had reading that book was thinking about you reading that book.
I was so angry. I didn't know.
I was at page 5, and it's like, oh, Josh is going to want to burn this book alive.
I was at the end of my work day today. It's Friday afternoon, and I was like, all right, I'll just quickly read this before I go. 68 pages.
Josh messages me at like 4 o'clock on 2 hours before the show. He's like, 66 pages. And I was like, oh, you waited till now? Oh, Josh. Oh, man. All right, let's move on to the next one. This is actually really good. Not actually, they've all been good. This is a good one too, though. Do Kendall H 33.
33. I've been reading comics since 2006. And at this point, I don't remember what happened in any books that are more than about 2 weeks old. When you guys are asked to arbitrarily make a list of top 5 comic book stories of all time, how do you even remember that? What happened in All-Star Superman? How do you trust that your memory of The Dark Knight Returns holds up to the modern eye? How can you compare something more recent like Tom King's Vision to stuff that you liked when you were a kid, especially if it's something that you haven't revisited? I have been thinking about this for about a year and a half since I bought a copy of Identity Crisis with the intention of reading it again. I liked every single thing about that question right through the last sentence. I just
So this is obviously based on that we had a question a few week ago, or was it on the Hangout where we talked about this? I don't remember.
know. Yeah, I mean, we always get this question.
That's where I can't remember. When things happen, I can't
Yeah.
remember. Every page of The Dark Knight Returns, I can tell you exactly. So Kendall's asking this because someone asked us our top 3. It was like our top 3 books we would, and I remember we said like Watchmen, we said New Frontier, and I said Dark Knight Returns and also Super. Like it was all older stuff. And so the question is, how can you remember or trust your memory? How does older stuff compare to modern stuff? There's definitely a modern bias in the question, which is fine. And the answer for me is I've read Dark Knight Returns probably 200 times. And that's a conservative estimate. When I was a kid, I read it like every day.
But even then, that gives you the ability to you can't judge it that way. Like I couldn't tell you right now. You did that. I watched Monty Python and the Holy Grail every day.
Right.
Literally. Like, is it good? I mean, yeah, but shit, I don't know how to send it up. Now, I think there's a real time problem here because I feel like there's a certain point and a time in your development, and there might be different points of it where you are going to really connect with a piece of work. And it's going to be close to the point of what I would consider.
Mike Romo's here in the chat room. Sorry.
It's going to be close to the point of like your enlightenment, meaning that like the point when you go, oh, comics. When you fall in love, when and there's going to be different points that happens. So I can easily go when I first started reading Preacher and got all the way through it, like that stuck with me. Now I was not a new comic book reader at that point, but it has, as opposed to like 3 weeks ago, I read a book that I really liked.
Well, the thing is, most things, we've talked about this before, most things are fine. Mm-hmm. When you read 15 comics in a week, 13 are fine. One's really good, one's really bad, or
and
2 are really
think
good.
Of any of them again.
And so the things that are like great stick with you. Put a pin in that, and the stuff you read as a kid. Now, when you're a kid, you're a very different reader as an adult. So, like I said, I had a box of comics that I just reread every day. I started going weekly to the comic store at 12, but before 12, I read Giffen and DeMatteis's Justice League issues that I had in my box over and over and over and over and over. I read The Dark Knight Returns over and over and over and over and over as an 11-year-old. So when Kendall asks, how can you remember what happened in The Dark Knight? And I'm going to include Justice League because that was on my list of the question he's talking about. It's because I know them. I know them as well as I know every scene of Casablanca, every scene of The Godfather. It's like I've read them so many times that, I'll be honest, I don't remember the plot of Vision. I remember liking it a lot, but if you put a gun to my head and said, tell me the story arc of the Vision, I remember somebody got killed and it might have been the daughter. I don't remember exactly. I remember it was really great, and if I read it again, I would really enjoy it. But a gun to my head, I couldn't tell you that. I could tell you the whole plot of the Gray Man arc because that was the 3 issues of the Justice League book I had as a kid and read over and over and over again. I can tell you beat for beat Dark Knight Returns because I've read it 200 times. That's why I didn't
read that, but I know that they're like seminal works.
Yeah,
obviously, and so like those are the works that I will go back to every once in a while. So I will go back and read Dark Knight Returns every once in a while, and every time I've ever done it, Watchmen's the same way. Every time I've ever done it, I go, "Oh yeah, this is like it will be better than it'll be better than my memory of it." And so that's how you know those are a thing. The New Frontier, which we just did, is the same thing. When I went back to New Frontier, I was like, "This is even better than the last time I went to it." And that's the same thing with great movies, with great comics, whatever. I find it's, for whatever reason, it hasn't happened to me like that in a long time. Most of that stuff is pretty old. And I don't know if that has to do with my age or the quality of stuff coming. It's probably more me than because somebody else right now is reading something that's making a huge difference to them.
Well, but if you think about it,
you're right.
if we were doing this show in 1986, most of what we'd be reading would be forgettable. But we would read
more than most.
Dark Knight Returns or Crisis on Infinite Earths, and we'd be like, or there was several books that came out that year. Josh and I almost wrote a book about that. That were like seminal works, but for the most part, we would have read a random issue of Green Lantern and not thought about it ever again, because that's how it is.
Which is still,
and that's just like TV and movies. Most stuff you consume, you just never think about again because it's consumed.
It's funny because I'm watching through Fargo again, and I remember at the time you seeing the first season and the other ones that came after. I was like, I think this is the best show on TV.
Yes,
and being very convinced about it, and then I'm just about finished with the first season again, and I've been like, yes, this is like, it's when you go back to something like that and it delivers again. I've watched The West Wing a dozen times or whatever, and every time I go back, I'm like, this is as good or better than I thought. But if you go back to like our say that we used to do a book of the week, book of the year, book of
the month, book of the year,
right? And when we came up to the point where which book's going to be the book of the year, we would all pretty much agree. It would be pretty quick conversation. Most of those, I own them. I don't remember what they are. I remember I really like them. But
two of them were Parker books.
Yeah, well, those are, but like
Petrograd was one.
Petrograd, Asterius Polyp, Aphrodisiac. Like, and those are all good. But I don't feel. I really do want to go read Asterius Polyp again.
Even a book of the year becomes somewhat forgettable, depending, because it's all a sliding scale of everything.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. Like, the seminal stuff sticks with you because it's seminal. Let's jump to, and I'm sorry we're skipping people's emails, but that's just the nature of the game here. And there's some good ones we're skipping, and I feel bad. Maybe we'll do them on the show. Jump down to, this is a quick one, 38.
Bryce says, I've been thinking of this question for about 10 minutes. Well, so she jumped in. Which Nightwing costume is Connor's favorite? Black and blue, red and black from the New 52, or that awesome collared disco outfit?
Disco. It's also not a disco outfit. It's a fucking circus performer's outfit. He's wearing a circus performer's outfit. That's what he's wearing. But
saying the disco people copy the circus people?
The deep V with the collar, which is basically his trapeze outfit, is the best one. Everyone knows that. Every right-thinking person knows that. Mike Romo in the chat room knows it. Everyone knows it.
What is there's the black one with the blue?
Oh, that's a great. Nightwing's had pretty uniformly great costumes. The black outfit with like the blue wing, which was one. It was briefly red. The New 52 when they made all the Robins wear red hood, Nightwing and Robin all red.
We have a Lego minifig, and it's the red version of that. And I couldn't.
It's fine, but I prefer blue.
I like that Robin is one of those, or not Robin. Nightwing is one of those characters who like doesn't really have a single costume. Like he's had a bunch of them, and it's not annoying. It's sort of part of it. Batgirl's another one of those, or Iron Man actually do a.
Although her new costume is so dumb, it's such a thin mask. Like she was standing next to her dad, and the reason is I was like, does he not see? Like her whole face is. I'm gonna do the next one, even though it's from me, Emlyn. I'm doing it because it's the only email from a female we got. Emlyn W from Sunny Wales.
Sunny is in parentheses, and I think that's sarcastic. I think that's some of that British humor I've heard about.
British wit. Sunny Wales, United Kingdom. Where did Connor's opinion eventually on the Doomsday Clock in its entirety? I've been thinking about this question since last week when I spotted its 2 collected editions in my local store, and then observed the complete collection is out in October. I'm a Marvel person, but the combination of Watchmen, Jeff Johns, and Gary Frank is too appealing to pass up. As a trade reader, I didn't want to pick up the issues, but I'm wondering if it's worth picking up the whole darn thing in one go.
Yes.
Yeah, I think so. Ultimately, I think it started really slow. The first, I actually be really curious to read it all in one go because I haven't done that yet.
We talked about it a lot.
Almost every issue.
Very interesting at the least. Like it wasn't ever bad. It was curious at times. It was good at times, but it was always thoughtful and thought-provoking. So that alone, and it's beautiful.
And beautiful.
The craft was top notch. I think it's totally worth it. Also, I'd like to add on, I'm not entirely sure that that's a female name.
No, it is.
It's Welsh. It's
No,
got. Okay, I hope so. But
in Gmail, you get your photo with your email.
Oh, fair enough. Fair enough.
I ultimately liked it. I would like to read it all again through because, like I said, the first few issues were really slow. We focused on those two characters that were not Punch and Jewel, or was that what their names were? The ones who were like not Jokers. It was like 3 issues of them, and no one cared. But about the midpoint to the end was really, I thought, terrific.
Mm-hmm.
And so, even though it was referenced in this week's Death Metal, it's kind of like you just kind of read it as an Elseworld story because it didn't end up changing the DCU like Jeff Johns intended it to be.
Mm-hmm.
So, listen, Gary Frank is terrific, and you got 12 issues of Gary Frank doing 9-panel grids. We talked about that just a minute ago. Even though it's constrained, Gary Frank isn't a big panel guy. His real strength is acting and characters. So, I think it's worth
fabric
reading. And fabric. Josh, you're up reading the thingy.
Okay, so listen, if you're listening to this, you're either a patron or you're not. And I think that you have a choice to make. And it might be continue. No, you can get over to patreon.com/iFanboy, where the folks who are able to support the show have gone above and beyond and out of their way to do so. We've tried to make it worth it for you, but also, like you guys are the leading the charge of people helping support the show so that not only you can listen to it, so that other people can too, and that we can keep doing it. And it means the world to us. So we're at 750 episodes. Obviously, it didn't take the patrons to get us to this point, and we love doing it and everything. But it might be taking the patrons to keep this going at this point, and it's made a big difference, and it's a big deal. And obviously, we thank everybody who does that, and not just our show, any show. It is the right thing to do. It is, there's like things like ours are not big enough to sort of get by on advertising alone or anything like that. It is a significant commitment of time and resources and everything, and we want to be able to do a good job. And we have adult lives and all those other things and responsibilities.
And we try to make it worth it for the patrons. We try to make it fun. We spend a lot of time in the patron Facebook group and the Discord channel chatting. And I don't use Facebook anymore, but I keep my account partially so I can hang out with the patrons. So we try to keep and we have the hangouts, even though we're open to everybody. Eventually they'll stop being open to everybody. They'll go back to just patron only. We try to make it worth it.
But it should be noted, not one patron has ever been like, I didn't pay for everybody else to be able to come in here. Like it's about the group. It's really interesting because the Facebook group, every Facebook group I've ever joined, every Facebook I've left because eventually it got horrible. And
cool.
For whatever reason, when our listeners get together in groups, they are generally delightful.
They're gems.
Agreeable. They are.
Gems. Everyone knows they're gems. They're gems of human beings.
So get over to patreon.com/iFanboy. There are goals. We have reached several of them. The next stretch goal is a G.I. Joe Corner, a monthly, yearly, weekly, some kind of regular show if we reach that next goal. And then the one after that would be a quarterly live barbecue show, which I don't even know is legal anymore.
I was thinking about it. We'd have to all remotely shoot and get on some sort of hangout like this and shoot from our houses. It would be really awkward, but I think it'd be fun. Because at the end of the day, we have barbecue meat, so it'd be fun.
Yeah, and I wouldn't, I wouldn't have to be mad at what Ron's doing to his wings because I don't have to eat them. You're doing that wrong, but go ahead and enjoy them over there. You can go to our t-shirt and sundries store at ifanboy.threadless.com. There are 8 designs up there now. Stay home and read comics. The iFanboy logo. If one is Electro. Wait, this is not official merch, but my very specific if one is Electro mask.
That's not the one of what are you buying non-iFanboy masks? What is that bullshit?
I didn't know. I know it's not. It's not. I have glasses, so it's a problem.
Yeah.
GDAT, nothing makes sense, nothing matters. Man, if there was ever a motto for our time, it is that. Nothing makes sense, nothing matters is almost too positive. That's where we're at. And anyway, a portion
more likely.
A portion of all sales from the Stay Home and Read Comics stuff goes to the Comic Book United Fund. You can go to ifanboy.com/support for direct donations via PayPal if you don't want to deal with any of that rigmarole, or you can get over to ifanboy.com/Amazon where we have an affiliate link. You can buy the books that are on the Booksplode. You can always click on the pick of the week to pick up that issue physically or digitally on our iFanboy page. Or it's just a general link to Amazon. So when you're just so fucking bored of sitting in your house and you're like, maybe the man in the brown truck will bring me something that will bring me joy.
Bring me
for a moment.
happiness.
Once at least what I get about 4 days in, I'm like, I need someone to bring me something. I can't sit in here anymore. That can help us out, and it doesn't cost you a damn thing. Just go through that way, and we appreciate everybody who does that. It's you are all good people.
Absolutely. There literally wouldn't be a show without you, without your support. So I thank everyone, not just patrons, every supporter helps keep the show going. I'm going to do Rob H. from Yorkshire, because I think Josh will have an opinion on this. Yorkshire, England. So, lockdown, huh? Homeschooling, huh? Huh? Honestly, we called it quits pretty early on and just opened the back door. Let him run free. What I discover is boy, my son can't focus. The thing is, he likes knowledge and stories, but gets bored reading, which is, because he's 7. But he loves superheroes, and I'm convinced my wife that comics could possibly really help, but not sure where to start. I'm after something not super violent, hard as superheroes, but I'm thinking the Timverse adaptations and Teen Titans Go might be appropriate. Thing is, he really wants to know more about Spider-Man and the Avengers. Any recommendations?
My kids don't like comics or care about them, so that makes this a little difficult for me. However, I have some experience. Teen Titans Go is great and really funny, and they like the cartoon. They'll probably like the comics. I think the comics without the cartoon might be a difficult sell because it's kind of weird. But if you have sort of the voices in your head about all that other stuff, then I bet the comics would be fun. Timverse, based on Batman Adventures Continues that I read last week, bad choice.
No, but the cartoons.
Yeah. Those are probably okay. It's still a little grim, and also I find that my kids can't take stuff that was made 20 years ago because everything seems slower than dirt to them. And that was a very...
I had that thought reading his email because I was a 7-year-old comic reader with no problem and no short attention span, but I also understand that things are different now.
Yeah. There are a lot of Marvel Adventures type comics. I know that IDW
is doing a ton of. They got the license to do like Marvel's middle grade and younger books. So
those are probably the place to go to find what you need. There's a lot of them, and DC's been putting out all ages OGNs.
Yeah. I would say and I don't know. I assume you can get those in the UK. The Avengers: Earth's Mightiest Heroes cartoon, which ran for 2 seasons. If your son is interested in the Avengers, terrific. Avengers: Earth's Mightiest Heroes and Spectacular Spider-Man are the 2 best Marvel cartoons of the last however many years. It's a great Avengers cartoon. And so if your son is interested in those characters, I cannot highly more highly, I'm too drunk to get the right words out. I cannot more recommend that cartoon than Avengers: Earth's Mightiest Heroes.
That was good. I've watched that. That's
a great cartoon. Great.
I love the Teen Titans Go cartoon. I think it's fantastic. So I recommend that as well. Check out those Marvel Adventures. I think it's 7.
Also, if you like Spider-Man, Spectacular Spider-Man, which came out around the same time as Avengers: Earth's Mightiest Heroes, maybe the best Spider-Man cartoon ever. Incredible cartoon.
Yeah, I don't know if that's too old for the Art Balthazar.
The Teen Titans, Tiny Titans, and
Tiny Titans. My kids really liked those, probably around that age. I've read through most of
them. They did a Superman book too. Superman
Family or something like that.
Those are great books.
Yep, those are really fun. So there's a lot of that stuff. If you have a comic book shop up there in the north, if you've got it around there,
he gave you the cues, Josh. If you're trying to pinpoint the accent, Sean Bean is a good start.
I know what a Yorkshire accent is.
Listen, he's just trying to help. Don't.
I was just watching. I just watched the English Game, and that all takes place around there. Anyway, if you have a comic book shop that is any good at all, and you go in there and you say what you're looking for, they should be able to point you to. They should have in stock these kinds of things because that is the smartest.
What about Bone?
Can do. It depends on the kid. I don't know. Like I read Bone with the older one, I think, recently.
You used to always recommend Bone.
Yeah, but I mean, again, Bone is it gets kind of scary, and then it kind of falls apart at the end a little bit. And it's one thing for me to look at it and go, this cartooning is amazing, but like the first part with the bones is really funny, and like there's stuff that was making my kids laugh out loud. At the end, it's getting to be a little like the Two Towers, and you're just
It's
like,
like every arc of every book like that.
yeah, like he was getting away from the stuff that made it. So I liked it, but it's a little trickier.
My favorite bone memory is when we almost caused a riot at the Jeff Smith booth by interviewing him for too long.
Oh. And he was friendly, so we went along with it.
I'm going to do Tom M. from Clifton, New Jersey. I'm going to jump to his second question. Tom M. is the host of the Good, the Bad, and the Nerdy Movie Podcast. And his question is, what is the worst movie that is a part 3 in a series?
Well, there's a
usually that
possible answer.
Usually that means part 3 of a trilogy, but there's some obviously longer series. I'm sure you could maybe throw in a Fast and the Furious, although I don't know about that. But
Tokyo Drift is okay, but it gets away from the initial concept, but then they come back.
The easy answer is The Godfather, Part 3. However, I haven't seen it in like 15 years, so I don't know that I feel good about saying that.
I watched it, I want to say 5 years ago. It's not as bad as you think.
I remember thinking there were really good sequences and scenes in it.
But it's bad. Like,
it was nominated for Best Picture.
It's not good.
It didn't win, but it was nominated.
No, like there's weakness. I saw the thing like he's thinking about re-editing it or doing like
they're re-releasing it, and I think he's re-editing it.
You know what?
Is he going to edit his daughter out?
I should. She's genuinely she's a great filmmaker
and an incredible filmmaker. I'm so excited for her new film with Bill Murray and
she's really bad in that movie. And it shows. So this is all right. So there's your Spider-Man 3, which we all saw together in the theater, which was
threes are hard. Spider-Man 3, Dark Knight Rises,
bad.
X-Men 3, The Last Stand.
I know that you're gonna stand up for Superman 3.
I love Superman 3.
I know you.
I love Superman 3. I'm gonna say, look, Spider-Man 3 is terrible. X-Men: The Last Stand is terrible, but in terms of a letdown for me, The Dark Knight Rises might be the worst.
Are we only talking about superhero movies?
No, but I'm just
Jaws 3.
Look, I mean, I can't. How can you? I mean, yeah, but like in terms of loving Batman Begins, loving The Dark Knight, going into that theater, being so excited. And 10 minutes into the movie going, oh, fuck. Oh, no. Just being so crushingly disappointed about that film. Well, so, like, from being at highs to lowest lows. Now, is it Jaws 3? No. But I'm talking about the expectations I had and the disappointment I had.
I know what you mean. I know what you're saying.
X3 is similar because X-Men was really good.
Yeah,
X2 is terrific. We had a question earlier we had to skip about I've seen them both recently, and they're both still really good. But 3 was terrible. But it was a different director, so like I was expecting it kind of because it's Brett Ratner as opposed to Nolan, who I love.
A terrible director.
Nolan, who I love, just I don't think I don't think he had it. I don't think he knew what he wanted to do with that film.
I don't know if this counts, but Matrix 2 and 3 that go together.
I never saw them. I just skipped them.
I don't think I ever saw 3, but I don't know that I've ever experienced a letdown from the Matrix to the second Matrix, so that I didn't even go to the third one.
I think I read all the reviews and I was like, nope. The thing about The Dark Knight Rises, our buddy Hank, who people have seen in our hangouts and have seen in our video shows, and Josh knows, he recently watched Dark Knight Rises, and he was texting me live updates. Cool. And they were really funny. Why are all the cops underground?
I thought you were going to tell me that he watched it and it was actually because it's Chris Nolan.
No, it's bad. It's bad. It's bad. It's bad. I'm sorry. I don't want it to be bad. It's bad.
All right.
I love everything. Almost. I didn't like Interstellar, but we're not going to get into that argument right now.
You didn't like Interstellar?
I didn't really like Interstellar, but we're not going to get into
watched it so many times.
It's fine. I love that you love it. I just don't.
I love it.
Let's move on. We're going to skip the Beatles question. Vamp for a second.
I was going to say.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead.
You didn't have to vamp for too long. John, I'm going to. Oh, shit.
Revenge of the Sith.
Oh well, Revenge of the Sith is pretty bad.
Yeah,
John,
but again, like that's another one where it's the same as the Matrix. Like, no, it's not the same as the Matrix because the first Matrix is a really good movie, but
yeah,
this like this with the second and the third, like the Phantom Menace, I was like, all right, it wasn't good, but there's hope. And then the Attack of the Clones comes along, and it's like, oh Jesus. And then by the time the third one gets there, you don't even have any energy for it. Like it's just which is the same as the Matrix. Like I have no
John
energy.
V from Brooklyn, New York. You often talk about the time in and around the 2000s as a great period, bookending it roughly at the Authority Marvel Knights at one end and the second Marvel Exodus increased parent company control on the other, with Morrison Porter, JLA being the Stooges, and Velvet Underground to this era's Punk. Was it, for adult readers, the all-time best period for Big Two comics? Aside from the fact that it eschewed a lot of clunky stuff like excessive exposition, has there ever been a time when, on average, the stories have been of a greater variety of artistic styles, more complex themes, richer characterizations, and better dialogue? If it wasn't the best overall, could you say it was the best period for writing? And do you agree with my bookends? I think so.
It's difficult for me. Yeah, I was going to say I think so, but it's difficult because I can really only apply it to my experience. I only lived through all those other times, so it's hard for me to say. But I can tell you that, let's say that we've been, quote unquote, seriously reading comics for 23, 4, like 20 years, really. But we'll just a little add a couple onto that. And that was the most fertile and interesting time, especially the early bit, 2000.
I don't think it's even a question.
No, I think you're right.
That coming out of Marvel's bankruptcy, DC is still basically an autonomous unit. Marvel could do whatever it wanted under Palmiotti and Quesada.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you ever had a more interesting time of quote unquote adult comics.
Yeah.
Across the board than you had from Warren Ellis on Authority and what was the other one? Stormwatch.
What number is this?
This is number 43.
Okay.
Warren Ellis on Stormwatch and then the Authority and then Marvel Knights happening to what was his other bookend? Was the second Image Exodus. That's like all the Image books. When Ron went to Image and Remender and Jason Aaron and all those guys did Image books. Bendis and Marvel, Ultimate Spider-Man, of New Avengers, Jeff Johns doing Justice Society. Yeah, it's tough because there was really great stuff in the late 90s before that. You had Rucka and Brubaker on Batman for an extended period of time, which was incredible. But if you're talking about a sustained period of time, the thing that got us into the thing that inspired us to do iFanboy in the first place, that got Josh sort of back into comics with both of his feet, it was 2000. It was Bendis and Powers. It was Gotham Central. It was Queen and Country. That
it was nothing to lose. It was like we can. It was these people who came in with a ton of talent, and there was no, like Marvel was bankrupt. They were like, whatever, we'll do really good stories, and that was it. That was the line. Like, let's do really good comics, and it was like, okay, like, and we haven't seen that happen again.
Yeah, because then Marvel became a Disney property, and now DC is a AT&T property, and
I mean the movies. You know what? The end point is 2008. It's Iron Man. Like comics might have had some
not 8 because it wasn't quite sure what was going to happen after Iron Man.
I know, but like that was the moment.
I would say 2000 to 2010. I mean, I would say 98 to 2010 is really what it's.
So I am gonna pick apart your metaphor, which I liked, but it's somewhat problematic because
we got a lot of questions.
No, I know that. Stooges was way before Punk, and I don't consider Velvet Underground part of that. But let's say if we're using Underground Punk, I'm gonna take it from early 80s, which would be like Black Flag, Minor Threat, Bad Brains. That to me is like the late 90s when pop music is bereft, and there's nothing else going on. Now the Stooges come way before that, as do the Ramones. So that would have been like stuff from 86. Like that was the 80s. Like 86 is the Stooges, the bellwether for what's going to come, but it doesn't all pick it up until later. Sorry.
Let's jump to
where to end that with the
jump to 45, Josh.
Eric C. I say everybody like I'm Ice Cube.
Woo!
There's a There is a question I've been thinking about for approximately 33 hours or 2,000 minutes. Thank you for the conversion. Basically, since Avengers came out, dominated the box office, and didn't translate into comic book sales. My math, every time I listen to an episode of iFanboy, I think about this question for about 5 minutes or for 400 episodes or so. My theory, this is a very well constructed dissertation. Marvel and DC's non-standalone storytelling is to blame for the films not raising comic book sales. Basically, a casual fan will have no way to jump onto a regular series without being totally lost. It'd be like starting Breaking Bad on season 3 instead of just watching any old Law and Order episode. Spider-Man Far From Home could be a hit, but if a movie fan buys Spider-Man book, how do they respond to the Spider-Man actually being Doc Ock? How do they blah 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 blah? This applies to me in many ways. I'm one of those strange listeners who mostly doesn't buy weekly books, but my last purchase was a Green Lantern annual, but listens to keep up with the storylines and get suggestions for other stuff, creator own styles. Thoughts on my totally off base?
First of all, okay, I've forgotten where the first of all was.
Yes, he's totally off base.
I've had. I don't think it's ever been different.
No.
Now, in 1989, when Batman 89 came out, you can find this online from the people at the time. It did raise sales. Sales skyrocketed for Batman comics
for a little while.
Right, but they people went and got comics, and I don't think it was because they went to the books and were like, "Holy shit, why is Robin here?" There's a lot of reasons why the movies and the TV shows haven't resulted in comic sales increasing. And by the way, Josh, I know you took a lot of shit back in the old days of the website for saying this would never happen, and people were like, "No, it'll happen eventually." It never happened.
Never happened.
Number one is that people don't read. In general. Number two, people don't read comics. Number three, they can't find them if they want them. And I realize they're digital now and everyone could find them, but you have to look for them. You have to know where they are. You have to know where they are. You have to know what Comixology is, and you have to go to it. And then number four, you got to pay $4 for 20 pages.
Comics are fucking expensive. And
number five is, why would you do all that when you can just go watch the movie?
So there is a fallacy that if you like Batman, you will want Batman in any form. And it is a fallacy. If you like to watch a Batman movie, then you're going to want to watch a Batman movie. It's a whole different experience. It is laid out for you. There's music. It is exciting. You know how to watch it because you're familiar with watching TV and movies, and there's celebrities in it. So you recognize the people in it. You've already into the situation. If you want more Batman, the comic is not the first place you go to. Well, what about these other TV shows?
You have cartoons, you have...
There's all sorts of other things. Comic books are comic books. You read comic books because you like the form. One way or the other, that has something to do with it. It is not a direct line to go from one to the other. I recognize that when somebody makes a movie of something really big, they sell a lot of the novels of that movie.
They sell a lot of the graphic novels. Yeah, no, that's the thing. And why do they do that?
Do those get read?
It doesn't matter. The point is, here's my 10th point. Why do they sell so many graphic novels? Why did Watchmen sales go through the roof when the movie came out and the TV show again? And why did Walking Dead sell through the roof? Because there are more people wandering around bookstores than there are in comic stores. Why did Batman 89 result in a big comic spike? Because in 1989, you could buy comics at the newsstand and in the drugstore and the supermarket. In 1989, I had a newsstand on 79th Street and Broadway, 2 blocks from my house, that I went to every single day. Comics were in front of people every single day. They went there for the newspaper. They went there for their cigarettes. They went there for their magazine. And they saw comics. And now if you went to see Batman and you saw a Batman comic and either you wanted it or you thought maybe your kid wanted it, it's right there.
And it was 75 cents.
But it's price irrelevant. Right. I talked about it. It's right there. If you're in a bookstore, there's a Walking Dead graphic novel. There's a Watchmen graphic novel. Otherwise, you have to find the comic store. And if you're not in a major city, they're just not. There's multiple reasons why it doesn't. It's not. There's not one reason why it's not this. It's certainly not the storytelling. It's price. It's availability. It's accessibility.
And let's take that one step further. You find a comic store. You walk into that comic store. even a small shitty comic store, it's just every. Can I help you? No, I'm just gonna browse, and you're gonna turn around and walk out unless you're the person who like really wants to dig in and get going. And again, that's gonna take some initiative. One last point to what you were saying about 1989. If in 1989 someone said, "I really like this show," have you seen it? You said no. Oh well, too bad. Because you wouldn't see it again. Like that was it. Like
Right.
there was not nearly close to the choices we have. It's not even the same ballpark. The idea of TV that we have now compared to how a TV is then, like, like it just didn't happen. There was not VHS seasons of television programs. There wasn't like, you'd rent a movie. That's kind of what you could do.
But even if you want, I really don't think it's the I don't think it's the product. I don't think it's the content in the pages. It's no different than it was 20 years ago, 30 years ago. If you're a kid who says, I love Batman and I want to read Batman comics, you got to find Comixology. You got to know what to look. You got to look it up and find. Like, it's not like it's in front of your face. It's not like your dad's buying a smokes with the paper and says, my kid loves Batman, I'll buy him some Batman comics. You've got to find it. Even though it's accessible, I in some ways more accessible than anything ever because it's online. You still have to know where it is. You still have to go find it.
There's everything else online too. I mean, like it's fighting with everything for your
246.
Ryan M from Cincinnati, Ohio says, why did the Animation Brain Trust not review Deathstroke, Knights and Dragons 2020 and Constantine, City of Demons 2018? And did either of you watch them? Quick review. No.
Why didn't we review them? Well, the Animation Brain Trust was formed, and its mission statement, its trust, its public trust is to review the DC Universe animated original films. Now, we have ventured off that path. Occasionally, we did a Marvel animated film. We did Batman Mask of the Phantasm. But for the most part, we do DC Universe's animated original films. Neither of those films are part of that line. These are both part of the DC Seed line, which are films they made to tie in with the Berlantiverse shows and were available on their Seed platform, which I don't even know what the fuck that is. But these are not part of that line. We don't generally review things that aren't part of that line. I have not seen either one of these. That's why.
Do you have any interest in seeing those things?
No.
Well, there you go. That's also got something to do.
Derek A., I've been thinking of this question since the beginning. Nope, that's not what I was going to do. Jonathan E., I skipped. Jonathan E., I've been thinking about this question since Josh did his one-man solo show. Do you guys miss three-person format? What were the pros and cons of that format?
Didn't we already talk about that?
We talked about Ron. We didn't talk about specifically the format of the show.
Show's easier to do now because there's less scheduling problems and we know exactly what it is. The format changes necessarily. I don't think it's better or worse. I think the thing that we are missing, the big con, is that we were talking about this earlier, is that Ron specifically had a very different take. And I think that he spoke to a part of the audience that Connor and I didn't. And the combination of those things was probably stronger.
So it's always better to have more opinions and more.
Yeah, but that work together. I mean, it's not better to just have more opinions.
No, I mean, like
a shitty podcast with like 6 people on
three of us. Yes. I mean, the three of us. It's always better to have a better. I mean, between 3 people, you can cover more ground. Mm-hmm. You can cover. People in the beginning were laughing during our X of Swords review because they were like, "Where the fuck is Ron?" Mm-hmm. Like, because Ron liked a segment of books that we didn't like, so he covered those books. That's.
Doesn't work now because he gets all defensive about Marvel, even though he says that he doesn't have an opinion of it. He totally does. And also, when he comes on the show now, he's so excited to talk, he won't shut up.
Because we're not babies.
Yeah.
Let's do.
You started to read Derek's question.
I know.
It's not a great question, Derek. I'm sorry.
Derek A's question was, I've been thinking about this question since the beginning of James Tynion IV's run of Batman. Have you noticed Batman has been smiling more lately? No. I haven't noticed that. Josh, have you noticed that?
I think that's probably book specific.
I haven't noticed that. I mean, maybe.
It is one of the things about Batman, though, is that he is able to take on many flavors and be, delightful in that way, depending on what you need at a given time.
Let's see. Scrolling.
Yeah, we're coming up on it.
Uh,
One thing you would think that by having two of us on the show is that it wouldn't run so long, and we turned out that's not true.
See, the benefit of 3 was that you and Ryan could be talking, and I could be teeing up the next email.
Right, I see.
All right, let's. This is a quick one. Django B from Bellingham, Washington. Do you guys like it when a comic book uses a real president as a character, or prefer an invented president? Question 55.
It's a very good question. I prefer an invented president, especially now because it is just too weighted. I mean, even when it was Obama, it was weighted, not for the right reasons. Or Bush. Yeah, actually, most of my adult life, it's sort of been a very, just the appearance of it, it brings up all these other real world questions that make it no fun. It's just, I feel the same way about, this is just a pet peeve. This isn't only vaguely related to this. You hate when journalists play themselves in movies that are fictional. I hate it. It should not be.
Yeah, I mean, this is more of a Marvel thing. Marvel likes to be in the real world, so they tend to have
that.
Yeah, no, that's their choice. So they tend to have the real world presidents. You know, they had Clinton, they had Obama, they had Bush in their books.
They haven't had Trump in a book, have they?
I haven't noticed it. Except for certain circumstances, I prefer fictional. I think it can be a powerful tool, like in The Dark Knight Returns with Reagan was a powerful tool, and it wouldn't have been the same. It wouldn't have been the same social commentary. Now, did I need Clinton to be the guy who gave Captain America back a shield? It's Captain America Reborn. Wait, not really.
No.
But it's fine. I don't really have a strong opinion on it, but I prefer an invented president.
It depends on what you want it to say. I mean, but the fact is now, if you have the real person, you're putting a different element in there that you might not have wanted to.
Josh, we're in the home stretch. We only have 6 left, so we'll do 56.
56. Justin V. I have read all the classic Garth Ennis books like Preacher and Hellblazer, but over the last 15, 20 years, Ennis has written a multitude of war stories published under smaller comic book publishers. Since you two seem to be the experts on random Garth Ennis books, which of these would you consider to be worthwhile reads? This is tough because they really are spread out all over the place with no discernible
He's
pattern.
all over the map. He's, like we said before, he'll shake his cup for whatever publisher will publish his World War II books. Now, if you're talking about 20 years, that's great because you're talking about his Dynamite run, which included Tankies and included Night Witches. Mm-hmm. Some of his best stuff happened in that first period where he published at Dynamite and had
War Stories used to be at Vertigo.
War Stories was the name of the book at Vertigo. We call them War Stories. I don't think he called them.
No, they were called War Stories at a certain, I think he owned it and like they moved it.
No, in Vertigo, but I don't know if after that they were called War Stories.
I think they were, is my point. Really? I think at Dynamite they were for a little bit. I would say that if you can, I don't know if you've ever read the Authority Kev books. At some point I got them all and I read through all of them. And I remember when they originally came out, I just didn't get it. And I was like, this is weird. But later going back and reading the Authority Kev books, I really enjoyed them. And it was just this guy, Kev, who was like a British SAS officer who, you know, I think that's right. He's like special forces kind of guy. And he just didn't, it was a little like Tommy Monahan, but he got involved with the Authority and all this stuff and sort of taken down people within the government who were bad. It was really fun and really good.
Now, I'm going to point out, like I said, any of the Dynamite books, especially from the early run of that, were great. Night Witches was incredible. Tankies was incredible. We talked about Sarah from TKO on a show during the quarantine part. There's no new comics. That was a great book. Someone in the chat room mentioned his Fury books at Marvel were great.
Fury Max was the other one I was going to say.
Fury Max, Goran Parlov was incredible.
Yep. And
I've got a new one that I haven't read yet that actually I got as a recommendation from the Patreon Discord channel. He did a OGN for some publisher I never heard of. I haven't even read it yet, but it's on my shelf. I bought it. I love his war comics. I'll buy, wherever he peddles his fucking pedal, I'll take it.
Punisher Born? That was another one? That was good.
So. Yeah, he's done a lot. He's done some that weren't that great. But...
Yeah, Punisher Born was the one about Frank Castle in Vietnam. It was fantastic.
And the thing is, usually the problem is when he's at the smaller publishers is that the art doesn't keep up with his writing. That's usually the problem. But it wasn't a problem with Sarah. It wasn't a problem with Fury Max. It wasn't a problem with Tankies or Night Witches. But There was a couple of those in there where it was like the art was like, "Ugh."
Yeah,
but that's
I don't like. He does some horror stuff. Someone said
we actually skipped the question about that earlier about his horror books, but
I don't like horror.
there was also one he did about the Flyers. I don't know. He's done a lot of really great horror books over the years.
There's no bad ones. Like if you happen to if you like Google Garth and his war comics, you're gonna be okay with there's something gonna be good in there. Like you're not like the art is sort of the only thing you need to worry about there.
Milan V from Cleveland, Ohio, the second V in a row, which is odd considering. I've been mulling this over since quarantine began. Seems like decades now, and I thought I'd ask your brain trust. I guess that's us. What has become of the Milestone and Malibu Comics lines that were swallowed up by the big two? Are there any examples of lines that were bought up that continue to exist in some form or another in the hands of their new owners? I can think of Wildstorm, but I don't even know if those characters are still being produced.
There's not still Wildstorm. They folded them into DC.
Yeah, so Malibu was bought by Marvel. Never heard from them again.
Milestone's
owned by DC. They published a few books. They didn't go anywhere. They're republishing now in the midst of the cultural revolution we're having. So we'll see what happens. But DC will be publishing new Milestone books. But for the most part, usually when a big publisher buys a small publisher, they're never seen from again. Those books are never.
I'm stuck around for a while. I mean,
it's because it's Jim Lee. That's only. I gotta believe that's the only why. It's because the fucking publisher of the company. Those are his characters, so they live on.
They do, but for a little while, Wildstorm was a really interesting little imprint.
Like Marvel bought CrossGen, like this, like they suck up these.
Yeah, I forgot about that completely.
They suck up these dead companies for nothing, and then they think maybe we'll do something, and they never do anything with them.
Right, because they're worthless. Yeah. I was going to think Valiant, but that's not what he's asking.
Valiant's its own company.
Yeah, no, I get that.
But Malibu is owned by Marvel, but they don't publish anything, and Milestone's owned by DC. Next,
I assume you know. I'll just go with number 58.
58. We're going through all of them.
Socrates A.
Socrates
A. Dave Beefheaven. Stan Lee was an amazing.
Talk about Bill Ted. I'll just talk about that forever.
We've done it. We've got to move along. Stan Lee was an amazing spokesman for the comics industry. No one has really stepped into that vacant role. I nominate a managed Rob Liefeld. Do I have to keep reading this?
Yes, read the whole thing.
Okay, I know. He's passionate about comics, energetic, and has 30-plus years working in an industry with various highs and lows. He would need a PR handler to help him manage Rob's passionate, off-the-cuff comments. Outside of that, I think he'd be great. Who would iFanboy nominate?
Well, no one. And it's not Rob Liefeld either. But I will say Rob Liefeld is super passionate about comics. He is super enthusiastic about comics. He was always a great interview about comics. Apparently he's doing some podcast series that Gabe Hardman has been raving about, but he loves comics. Say what you will about what he draws or writes or whatever.
Says, thinks.
He is a great ambassador for comics. Now, there will never be another Stan Lee. And you can't artificially put someone into Stan Lee's position. Stan Lee built and earned that position. You can name people. People are talking Mark Miller, Rick Remender. They're all fine, entertaining people. They are not Stan Lee. Stan Lee was a cultural force. Why? He created most of the characters, so he was associated with them from the get-go. He put his name on every Marvel book. Every Marvel book was Stan Lee Presents, so his name was out there in every book. He narrated every cartoon. He was the face of the company for the public. So he put himself out there from the beginning, and he is there from the beginning as the creator. You can't artificially insert someone into that position.
I think I don't disagree with you, and it's a different word.
They're all nice people, but they're not Stan Lee. He is not Stan Lee.
They're naming creators. Those people talk about their own work. But listen, I do think that there was a bit there. I think Joe Quesada is the guy who has come the closest. He had a thing, at least among the community, as did Dan DiDio. I think those two, and they had a little bit of a dually thing going on, which I thought was kind of interesting and old timey. Like they would rib each other and go back to the old days, the guys across the street or whatever. But
that's inside baseball stuff. We're talking about a guy who
I know, but it was all inside baseball at that point.
My mom knows.
I know
everyone because he put himself out into the public, and when they talked about him, oh, this is the guy that created Spider-Man. you can't put Rob Liefeld out there and be like, this is the guy that created Youngblood. No one gives a shit.
Well, he'd say I created Deadpool, and he would think that would be equivalent.
Right, but like it's not the same because he's always Stan Lee was very cognizant of the power of mass media, and I'm not reacting to you after the email. Stan Lee was cognizant of the power of the mass media, and so he made it his job once he was no longer day-to-day publisher to promote the brand to the world, and so he spent decades doing that as the creator of all the characters. So he had cachet. You can take any charismatic motherfucker in comics right now, they're not going to become Stan Lee. They're not, because they don't have the cachet, and they didn't build the groundwork, and they didn't narrate the fucking cartoons on Saturday morning. Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends and Hulk and all the cartoons. He narrated every episode. He was very smart about and canny about putting himself out there into the world as the face of comics.
And it's interesting because he really straddled a bunch of eras. Like he was part of the golden age. Like he was around in the 30s and 40s, and he went all through the Silver Age, and then sort of kickstarts that Marvel age of stuff, and went all the way through, to 2 years ago. It's kind of amazing. I don't know. It's some magical combination of like his voice plus
and his persona, and
he had the
bona fides of being the creator of all those characters.
Yeah.
So
and he never thought that he was respected for it, and he didn't own any of them. So there you go.
To the next. The point is, you can pick anyone. They're never going to replace Stan Lee.
No, and it wouldn't, because also he's at the beginning of the thing as it exists now. It's almost like the same thing as like the reason that we're sitting here is because we started podcasting when we did.
Yep. We were there at the beginning. We wouldn't do it. Like I said earlier, 6 hours ago. If we started the show now, we wouldn't be getting nowhere because that's just
no one would be able to find it.
We got 3 questions left. Go to Jeff.
Jeff L. Probably not Lemire. What is your favorite, not necessarily best, but favorite adaptation of a comic book property into another media? I suppose I'm thinking of either a movie or TV show, but maybe there's a play for an album or sock puppet show that has a place in your heart. I think we're going to go for movie or TV show here, Jeff. I wish I had prepared for this.
That's okay. I mean, like, if I was told you can only ever watch one comic book film ever again, it's Superman the movie.
Probably.
I mean, I love The Dark Knight. It's the best. For me, it's the best. And I love a lot of the films. I love the Avengers film. I love the Infinity War film. I love the Iron Man. I love all those movies. The Marvel's run is unparalleled. But like, if they say you're gonna only ever watch one superhero movie ever, it's gonna be Superman the movie. But to me, it embodies the ethos of the character the best and superheroes the best.
I agree with you, and that's fine. Modern superhero movies, you have to pick a favorite.
Modern, like post what? Post 2000.
2008. Let's go from Iron Man forward.
Then it's The Dark Knight.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thor Ragnarok is my favorite superhero movie.
Okay.
TV shows.
I
really love that first season of The Boys.
Boys is terrific. The first season,
so fucking good.
Talking about it.
Yeah, I started to watch it and then got distracted, but I think it's because they're releasing it weekly.
Even though the numbers are apparently through the roof, no one's talking about the second season. Anyway, the first season of The Boys is terrific.
Did you like the TV?
I liked Daredevil
a
lot. I loved Smallville all the way through. It's for all its campiness. I mean, I love that stuff. I love the campy soapiness. I love Smallville. I love The Flash. I loved Arrow.
Flash is a good show. I don't watch those shows before.
It's not your thing. I wouldn't expect you to watch those.
But I did watch a few of the Flash, and I was like, this is great. Like, if this was the thing that I wanted, but
Watchmen, obviously.
Scott Pilgrim is a wonderful adaptation.
There's a lot of great ones, but like if you're picking one, it's Superman the movie.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fair. That's good. Brian R comes in and says, I'm moving in the next year cross country. The question is, do I take this as an opportunity to switch to digital books rather than find an LCS 20 miles from where I'm moving to? I've been thinking about this since Rebar was a thing.
I got that.
Rebar is not a thing. I don't understand this thing about should I do digital or not. Like it's
a scary thing.
I know, just like you could start doing it now. It really has to do with your preferences. It doesn't really matter.
You can do
If
you can do both. You can
if the
mix and match.
object is important to you the way that a vinyl record is important to me, then keep reading comics. If you want to be at a place where you can talk to other people about comic books in person and you found a store that has that, by all means go to that, support that. If you don't want those things, you just want to stay home and you don't want to spend that money to drive somewhere in the time, you don't need to get out of the house, then or you like just reading on your iPad, do that. Or the hybrid model. Do some of each of those things.
Yeah, I mean, it
doesn't
depends
have
on
to
where he
be-
lives. Like if he's living in a small town where there's no comic store within 50 miles, then maybe that's your answer. But if
Or
you're in
even
a,
worse, if there's like a shitty, terrible comic store that makes you hate comics.
like I reject the idea that it's like that factions have to be created against each other, right? Like digital people are one thing, and like store, like I don't know why we have to be. We're all in this together. It's a small medium. We're fighting to keep it alive. Why do we have to be at odds? All it is different methods of reading the same thing.
I
mean, we should all be at odds with the fucking pirators. That's who we should be at odds
Yeah,
with, not
I
digital.
agree. I have friends who run comic book shops, and I've had the conversation is that I was like, I don't think that the digital comic book customer is the same customer as the physical comic book
I
customer.
mean, a couple here and there. It's not a statistical significant number.
But it feels like one of them wants to go buy the object, and the other one just wants to read the thing, and they'll do it the easiest way for them.
Who cares? Who cares?
Yes.
Who cares? Give us a fuck. The world's burning. I don't care if you read it in paper or digital. Fuck it. The fucking California's on fire. I'm drinking.
Burn It All Down Connor is my favorite Connor lately. Like
no, but the point is like we're not up to our ears in gold here. Like we're trying to keep this alive amongst corporate malfeasance and all kinds of shit going on. Why do we need to make this a thing where we have to fight each other? I've seen people like swear like, oh, he reads digital, fuck that guy. Like what do you care? Who cares?
Really?
Yeah, I've seen that online. I've seen it from comic store owners.
Well, that's different. They have a whole protectionism thing going on, and it has stymied the development of digital comics as a delivery system and a pricing thing. Where I think that had that not happened, the shops would not have gone out of business. The publishers and creators would have made more money, and we'd be looking at a whole different thing. But they were so afraid that everybody would leave them the way that they left record stores. But that indicates CDs are so different than
comic fans are not the same as other fans. They're mostly in the artifact business, and I don't say that derogatorily. That's just the reality of it. I would say, look, Brian, if you are in a close proximity to a store and you want to keep reading physically, great. If you want to read digitally, great. If you're 100 miles from a closest store, you don't want to make that drive to get comics, then read them digitally.
You know what I think is a thing is people don't like, if you're used to buying physical comics, you don't want to try digital for a little while and then have to go back and then have like a 3-issue.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I get that.
I bet that's a ton of what it is. I
get it. But I just feel like we all should just enjoy the comics however you want to enjoy them. This could all end tomorrow. And so read the comics however you want. I like reading them on my iPad. You might like reading them in person. I like reading them in paper in book form, but not in comic form.
You know what's funny? I read so much digitally. Every once in a while, I'll go back to a paper book and I'll go, this is great. I just read this. And I was reading it in paper, Dragon Hoops by Gene Yang. And in paper, I was like, it's so great to read a comic book on paper. Like it was amazing. But it's whatever you're used to.
All right, the last question comes from Jimsky. Who's your favorite iFanboy writer from the website days? Be completely honest, unless it wasn't me.
Do people even know who he is anymore?
He was just on the show.
I know that. I'm just saying, like, if you're here, like, when was that? When did that stop?
So here's the tricky bit. Jimsky wrote this in. He's probably listening.
Sure.
Mike Romo, former writer, is in the chat room right now. Ryan will hear this at some point. He was a writer on the website. So
somebody just mentioned Connor's iPad with a pull start in the chat. That's my favorite joke we've ever done on the show.
I will say this. Fuck, man. Jimsky's an incredible writer.
I will say this. Jimsky was my
great
favorite. Jimsky was my favorite writer we ever had. He's a much better writer than me or you or pretty much anybody I know. And the fact that somebody isn't paying him to write, that dude could write whatever he wrote. It would go up on Monday morning. I don't get the sense that he was like, I've been working on this. He would be like, oh shit, I got to do something. And he put it out and he would get 100 comments.
By the way, I think Mike Romo just cut you out of his will in the chat room.
Mike Romo knows exactly what I'm talking about. He knows that I love him.
Everyone we brought on and hired was great in their own different ways. They were all great. Paul is a savant with the word, and he became a savant on the show as a host. He was the glue for a long time. Mike brought this incredible enthusiasm into his writing that is really hard to do, to translate.
It's full Mike in writing.
Sonia brought her unique take, being outside of the norm and being from England and being a woman. We had dozens of people over the years. I mean, the answer is Tom Caters was the best writer. That's more for digging at you than anything.
Yeah,
I know. Timmy Wood, our late friend Timmy, was hilarious. Everyone we had: Molly, Allie, Chris Niesman,
Josh,
David Brothers, Ben Simpson, Josh Richardson, Josh Christie.
Oh, we're gonna forget somebody. Matt Adler did it for us.
Matt Adler. We had a ton of people. Chris Arendt,
who's like in charge of all comic books.
Running like Newsarama or something. Yeah. Like we had really great writers, and we didn't bring on anyone who we thought couldn't write, but Jim is an incredibly talented writer.
Jim was my favorite. It was the one that I was most like, oh, I can't fucking write like that, and it pisses me off, but like in a good way. Also, I think Jeff Reed is actually the best person.
Jeff Reed was incredible. Jeff Reed wrote great stuff. Great stuff.
With
everyone wrote great stuff. We were incredibly lucky. Paul Dini and John Hickman were great writers.
Oh, yeah. Well, no, Hickman would just go on forever and never have a point, and then we get all cosmic-y and
you just slagged off our former employee earlier in the show.
Forgot about
that. Everyone we had people that a lot of people wanted to write for us, but we had a very select process, and
I fired one guy.
Jimsky, I'll tell you what Jimsky's talent was, and you mentioned this a minute ago, was he's an incredible columnist. Column writing is a very different skill than just writing. You could bet on it that he would garner a reaction, and that's what a columnist is supposed to do: is write about an issue and garner a reaction. And I would guarantee that I would wake up on Monday morning at noon, and there was 80 angry comments under his article. Mm-hmm. Or happy comments, but there was 80 angry, passionate comments under his article because he was very good at it.
Yeah.
What else?
He had a point of view, and he had a way of getting it across and supporting it.
What I also liked about it was he was not afraid of sticking it to you and me and Ron.
No,
a lot of his columns were reactions to what he just heard on the show on Sunday.
Yep,
and I loved that.
It's true.
Gordon wrote great articles. Mike wrote great. What I loved about Mike's articles, Romos, was that they were like, it was a man struggling with coming to terms with his changing relationship to comics. Because the reason why I know this stuff is because last year I was spending some time sort of cleaning up the old articles, so I was reading a bunch of them, and Mike was struggling. Like we got him at the end of his arc as a comic reader, so it was like a chronicle of a man who was once a big comic fan coming to terms with the fact that he wasn't anymore. And it was really personal and interesting. Mm-hmm. And Paul is just a savant. Paul puts words together in a way that is just out of this world. And the fact that Paul and Jim aren't being paid to write is a fucking travesty.
Agree.
I mean, we've had a lot of great writers, but like the fact that Jim and Paul are not being paid to write is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So we were incredibly lucky with our staff. And we
Yeah.
talked about this earlier in the section of, what we miss. I miss having that group of writers. I miss,
Did we mention anything about Ryan's writing on the show? Because if not, or on the site, because if not, I think we should leave it there because he'll get pissed off about it and bring it up the next time he's on the show.
Ryan had a great perspective from a science perspective. He wrote great science articles.
I know that,
but Wood wrote great business articles. Like everyone had great perspectives on the world.
Yeah, I don't think that I would have known to speak about it at the time, but it was obviously clear now that like we needed people to have a voice and a perspective, and if you didn't have that thing, we couldn't do anything with you.
I'm gonna make a self-serving statement. I don't often thump at the chest, but I think we had that period of time we had the best sustained writing staff in comics journalism online.
Easily,
by far.
Because it had a personality.
And that's the reason why it wasn't that popular, because we weren't writing about the bullshit of the day. It was genuinely interesting point of view writing about comics. And in that period of time, 2008 to 2010 or 11, like there was a couple years I was genuinely pissed we didn't win an Eisner.
I tried.
It was like 2 years where I was.
No, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. That was
shit. But there was like 1 year where I remember getting a text message. I was at a bar and it's like we didn't even get nominated, and I was like, "What the fuck?" We were doing 7 shows.
What do we have to do?
We had these great staff. Like I think I just accidentally deleted one of Mike Romo's comments in the chat room because I'm drunk. But like there was 1 year where I was genuinely upset.
I remember that
we didn't even get nominated. It was like 2008 or 9. We were just like we were hitting it.
I had a back and forth with Jackie Estrada. And I was like, dude, we do this website. We have we have been the #1 podcast in comic books for as long as there has been podcasting in comic books. We're not affiliated with anything.
Shows a day.
We're independent. We do all these shows. She's like, and they were like, well, we don't have any way to listen to all those shows. And I was like, it's one little part, but look at the thing. Oh.
But also I come from a family of newspaper people. My grandfather was a publisher and editor of a big paper, and my uncle was a publisher, and my dad's still an editor. Like having a staff, it was the best.
Yeah,
having a staff of great writers was the best. And yeah, comics journalism doesn't exist according to chat room. It doesn't. It wasn't journalism. It was opinion writing. It was passion. It was punditry.
It was like Rolling Stone, or it was like Cream, or
we weren't breaking any stories. We didn't want to do that.
We tried to every once in a while, but it was lame, and it was inauthentic.
Yeah.
I think. No, you're absolutely right.
But there was a couple of years I was fucking pissed that we didn't even get nominated.
You know what? You know what's interesting is to think back at that. We were not paying them for a lot of that. We were doing it for free.
We gave all of it at the end of the year, if you recall.
They were on a schedule, like they were held to account. We had meetings, we had, like the whole deal, and people did it because they loved it, which is, by the way, the best thing about comics. The best thing about comics, especially during that period that we were talking about, is that the people doing comics could have gone and done anything else, but they chose to do comics instead. And that's why they were great. And that's why the people who were working on art, that's because they were doing it because they wanted to and because they care about it, but also because they were good at it. There was this combination, because lots of people who do it because they want to do it, they're just not that good at it, and they don't know it. Nobody's going to tell you you're not good at it, but
yeah. And I just liked having a group of really passionate people to not mold, but to sort of guide. And then I love that we talked about it earlier. The benefit of the graphic area was to get to pay them per article, per piece. For real, was very satisfying.
And it wasn't a ton, but it was definitely something.
No, but they got money per article, per piece. If they wrote a ton, they got more. Maybe it was it was a thing. But it is what it is. Jimsky was great. Paul was great. Mike was great. Sonia was great. They all brought their own. They all brought their own worldview and their own experience to the thing, and that was what was great about it.
All right, Dean Martin, wrap it up. If you would like to write to us, now we have a backlog of things that we can use in the show because we don't get good emails now.
Yeah, we skip a lot of emails. I'm sorry.
It's a long call, dude. You can write to contact@ifanboy.com. You can send emails there. You can send voicemails there. You can do whatever you'd like there. Would be fine. No promises, but do what you can. Try to make it an interesting question. Probably not going to be something we've never asked before, but we always get surprised when it is. I'm going to plow through here. So out now, Animated Brain Trust.
I can do it.
I know. I just was on a roll.
All right, go ahead.
Animated Brain Trust podcast, Superman, Man of Tomorrow, that is out. The Last Media Explode, with number 7, which is centered on Bill and Ted Face the Music, but was about many other things as well. It's probably about a third of the show. Connor, did you see how excited he just got about wanting to talk about Bill and Ted's?
We talked about
where you can find that
12 different things on that show, at least. So
yeah, it was a lot of stuff on the show.
Yeah.
Coming up, I have a Talksplode scheduled. I did move it. I was supposed to do it Tuesday night, but I found out that was the night of the first presidential debate. And I said, man, I have to watch this thing. It's supposed to be about the exact same time, but I don't like to talk about who I'm talking to normally. And I'm not going to, but it's a guest I've never had on the show, which is going to be pretty amazing, I think. And he's a real good dude. Oh, I said it was a dude. There you go. We're on Amazon Music now. That's a thing that I didn't know existed. They do podcasts now. So we are there. On there, so you can go to music.amazon.com/podcast and search iFanboy. I'd be curious if you could pull the comic book thing there and just write comic book and see how long it takes to come up there. But who knows? Still works on iTunes.
Yeah, you can follow. There's a button to click follow. So if you use Amazon Music,
right,
think about giving us a follow.
Sure.
I'll do this part. Head over to ifanboy.com, find all of our podcasts. You can find out what the pick of the week is before the show comes out by liking facebook.com/ifanboy. Or following at iFanboy on Twitter. And also, we're not introducing iFanboy Comics. This is from last year's script. iFanboy, at iFanboy Comics on Instagram. That's where the Best of the Week in panel features is. Although I didn't do any this week because it was a very busy week. Individually, we are CS Kilpatrick on Instagram, J.A. Flanagan on Instagram. Not long on Twitter, so follow him now. And subscribe to your YouTube page at youtube.com/iFanboy. Like and subscribe like the kids do. You can keep up to date in the old video show reloads. This past week, we did the iFanboy Mini reacting to the Iron Man trailer. That's how long ago that was.
Wow.
With a tribute to Mike Wieringo and comics that break the fourth wall.
That's when Augie came over.
Augie came over. We showed some original art that Augie had. We interviewed Tom Brevoort and Todd Dezago.
Yeah. Really?
Yeah.
Wow. We really cared back then.
Can you think of those 3 shows, which one was the most popular?
Iron Man trailer.
Yes.
Movie stills.
And then comics to break the fourth wall. I thought the Wieringo show would do better, but that's such a... Finally, if you like the show, write a review on iTunes. Again, this is an old script. Write a review wherever you listen to podcasts. Leave a star rating. It really helps the show. It helps people find podcasts. Any show you listen to, it's great for that. And then even better than that is to tell your friends, tell your mom, tell your aunt. Holidays are coming. I can't wait for the holidays, and you can start telling your friends and family about these around the table. What are you doing, Josh?
Standing up. I've been sitting down for a long time. I have sciatica. It's late.
You should I can give you some stretches for that. Mm-hmm. So that's it. That's our
I've done them all.
Episode, Josh.
I'm Josh.
Well, I just wanted to say thank you first before we sign off to everyone who listened for 750 episodes.
I guess I just decided I was done.
And I wanted to say thank you for the people who have stayed in the chat room and watched the live stream. I've been watching the viewership numbers, and it's been incredibly steady the whole night, which is incredible. So thanks for everyone coming out, watching us, listening for these 15 years, for 750 episodes. Who knows how long we'll go, but we enjoy it, so we're going to keep doing it.
I'm going to tell you right now, we make a lot of jokes about stopping, but at no point in the recent future of Connor been like, oh, this is such a drag. It is no less fun than it has ever been to do the show. None. None. It's total. I mean, I'm tired. I want to go to bed right now.
Do stuff. Sure, we're older. We have more complicated lives, but it's still a lot of fun in that hour plus we do the show. Uh-huh. So we're gonna keep doing it. And we'll be back next week. And until then, I'm Connor.
And I'm Josh. Thanks so much, everybody.
All right. We're done.
God, that's a long time.
It wasn't that long. It was about regular.
It's long. 3.5 hours?
It's like half the questions.
All right. I mean, that's normal.
All right. Josh, go to bed. I'm going to go finally eat.
Ooh.
And thanks for everyone hanging out. I appreciate all the comments. I've been keeping my eye on the chat room. Good night, everybody.
Congrats to the people who stayed on the whole time with us.
Yeah, thank you.
It's not nothing.
All right. Talk to everyone later.
Bye.
Bye-bye.